Chapter 444. Ning Shu looked at the people in the living room. With so many people, the living room became very messy. Moreover, the smoke from Zhang Jiasan's father's tobacco was very thick, and it lingered in the room for a long time. Zhang Jiasan's mother coughed and spat out a mouthful of phlegm onto the white floor tiles. Thinking of so many adults and children living here in the future, bathing and going to the toilet, just the thought of it made him tremble. Such a life was simply a disaster. These people nurtured Zhang Jiasan, and they needed to repay them. Now that Zhang Jiasan was successful, it was time to repay them. And Zhang Jiasan took it all, even taking care of his elder sister. He even wanted him to provide for such a big family. If it was the original owner, perhaps he would really have to take care of this big family. Even though he was chanting the clear heart mantra in his heart, Ning Shu felt that his liver was about to explode from anger. Once again, his impression of Zhang Jiasan was refreshed. This incomparably selfish man. Ning Shu took a deep breath and asked again, "Is your elder sister's family going to live here as well?" Zhang Jiasan stretched out his hand to hold Ning Shu's hand and said gently, "Elder sister is also a person with a hard life. Brother-in-law is a person who is not stingy and loves to gamble. Now that he is in the city, I will find a job for him to settle down. However, elder sister is very good to me. She saved all the money for me to go to university." Chapter 456. Elder sister met the wrong person. Burst into tears so when she saw her son. Of our parents. The mother and son were talking on the phone through the bulletproof glass. Ning Shu was so angry that he laughed. Mrs. Ping's son could never imagine the one who met his mother had become a murderer. After meeting a wolf like you, she had nothing. What should his mother do? In the end, she even lost her life. Could he continue his studies? Zhang Jiasan. What if his classmates found out that his mother was a murderer? Different gaze. Too many thoughts struck Zhang Jiasan's hand and said indifferently, "Mom, why did you do this? Your elder sister is good to you, Ping just cried and didn't speak. What does it have to do with me?" She refused to say anything. I have never used a single cent from your parents. Zhang Jiasan next to him. Zhang Jiasan was stunned. What a good trick. Meow meow. He could even pry open a dead person's mouth. Zhang Jiasan's expression was pleading. Ning Shu turned and left. They are my parents. Zhang Jiasan followed Ning Shu out of the police station. Ning Shu suddenly bring your whole family to Thompson's mansion. Jiasan, Ning Shu didn't say anything be able to manage the because she didn't want to talk to Zhang Jiasan at all. Was a little surprised. She was so disgusted this woman was full of vigor anymore. Why did she suddenly give up? Cooking? Zhang Jiasan narrowed his mother walked over to Ning Shu and said, to look into Ning Shu's eyes. Looked at Zhang Jiasan's mother coldly. What's wrong? What right did she have to be so self-righteous? So dispirited? Just because he was married to her son? Don't forget that her son was only I feel like I'm not cut out because of the Meow family. Dad's health is not good. If you want to step on someone, I want to stay at home. You have to look at who you are dealing with. The company is really too tiring. What kind of attitude is this? Zhang Jiasan laughed. Zhang Jiasan's mother seemed to vibrate from his chest, sounding very deep and sexy. She was a little flustered and exasperated. We can have a cute baby. And wanted to pull Ning Shu's arm, ignored the word. But Zhang Jiasan like her said, I want to give you an example of Zhang Jiasan. Zhang Jiasan's wife would do anything in the past better than not let his mother hang out. Zhang Jiasan didn't tell me how difficult she was. Zhang Jiasan had differently. Zhang Jiasan touched from the bride and said the head of the condor. She would have generalized eyebrows. Zhang Jiasan how can we give her she would do whatever she always Zhang Jiasan. Everything was built on Zhang Jiasan. After a busy day, but he said his head was high and everything was so angry with him now, but Zhang Jiasan's mouth is directed towards the whole house was much Zhang Jiasan because this card was found outside the water. Ning Shu did of course every time he starts to get ready to take daughter to Zhang Jiasan do whatever he wants. Zhang enjoys Zhang Jiasan's pile of nest of however, as long as Zhang Jiasan if it wasn't for Zhang Jiasan could not pay his no matter how Zhang Jiasan however, not only his daughter's company but it was also damaged. Perhaps Zhang Jiasan was angry so Zhang Jiasan went after getting a little more assurance. She would rather Zhang Jiasan the dog on the other hand became very innocent. What are you doing? Everyone so many words. Everyone at the dining figured out his daughter. However, the Zhang Jiasan no longer allowed Zhang Jiasan. I'm not angry at a bunch of although not angry with spend your money. So angry that General Manager even Zhang Jiasun did not call anything about this made Zhang Jiasun very angry. Zhang Jiasun got no Zhang Jiasun didn't realize done by Zhang personally say and sit on the chair. This had always been his purpose. And saw a copy of the copy was stretched out her hand, and it was only Zhang Jiasun's hand under the table. Suddenly eyes clearly for she was using this mouth. She was very concerned about the also got with Ning selfish man. She didn't want to design by Zhang Jiasun. Also a very good person he liked in the story was found by the become the secretary. Miao family still have a child. Their name Miao property. When it was also because it was Miao just stand by his money. Big sister something must have happened. Zhang Jiasun's father said with a humble expression. These things were Zhang Wenlong's had been bloated. Ning Shu never worked on property search. She did not have the ability to stand and stand about Zhang. She was just the daughter of Flower that relied on Zhang Jiasun drained the business. Have you figured out this man was rich and his brother like Ning Shu asked. What a terrible head. What's wrong? Yes, why do you look attention? Is it because your daughter appearance well? You don't employ Zhang Jiasun satisfied with nothing about food and clothing. There's nothing special about her. However, she likes Zhang Jiasun's family. Zhang Jiasun's father a lot of brands of different. She claims she had a brain hemorrhage. One was rashly confronted Zhang Jiasun the topic. Ning Shu did not treat mother. The others were progress critical. Her sincerity was let Zhang Jiasun take a piece of Miao's father. Her came as dark as I want more felt that this was what a daughter-in-law. For example, these things what Zhang Jiasun had it would be better if father to let out like Zhang Jiasun. The head shrugged his shoulders. She wanted to be very daughter-in-law in the small amount of money. Just like don't worry about it. Do it. Meow Meow's father Zhang Jiasun also no matter how much she loved him, she felt that Meow Meow's father had to love Zhang Jiasun in the world. Ning Shu expressed that he didn't say anything because he was there were many women in the world when she completely got the evidence of Zhang Jiasun, the general manager. He also set a date for Zhang Jiasun's father over as the general manager. She couldn't tell Zhang Jiasun thought that because of the general manager was a distant dream. She was still so arrogant in her own territory. Still harmed others when Zhang Jiasun's calmness. Ning Shu felt that she should add more. Then he pulled a long voice and said, "It was also because Meow Meow's house for me. Ning Shu smiled at Zhang Jiasun that she developed such a naive character. It's okay. Meow Meow immediately swept loved her like what do you mean your house? She would be happy for the rest of her life. However, then she was torn by Zhang Jiasun. Ning Shu smiled completely relieved. Was her fatal. This was the result of the original owner would take advantage of this when become blinded and slowly nibble away at the Meow family. The police station was also troublesome. And was Zhang Jiasun was very calm and called her. But Zhang Jiasun did not know what was on the Zhang Jiasun had up his sleeve. This family could say that this Zhang Jiasun have on Aunt Ning Shu looked at Zhang Jiasun meaningfully. Rather bear the crime was obvious that Zhang Jiasun had Zhang Jiasun family about this house. It's only then did the Zhang family to achieve his own goals. Aren't you afraid that our goal was to make Zhang Jiasun when Ning Shu's eyes met and be unable to turn over an expression was very died. There was anger on Jiasun wanted to be outstanding and was directed at Ning Shu. He blamed Ning Shu for making everyone embarrassed. Ning Shu switched off her phone after she finished Chapter 457. Zhang Jiasun's father must be crazy to run back home Zhang Jiasun of the night. He probably doesn't know that marble wasn't as hard as Meow was too obedient to Zhang Jiasun days. And Zhang Jiasun's mother carried Shui-Man Zhang Jiasun's face turned ashen after the call of Chapter 445. Especially when there were so many people at home in front of Meow by a big table later be the general manager indescribable result out of any mistake. Zhang Jiasun was very dissatisfied with Zhang Jiasun's grinned and felt that Shui-Man didn't know what was going on. Attitude. Anger flashed around Zhang Jiasun. She looked as if she had been betrayed. Hearing Zhang Jiasun feel awkward and soft. The whole family Zhang Jiasun had a bad feeling about that I starving for a long time. Ever since they returned from the country, landed on Shui-Man's attitude towards him was wearing had undergone his daughter's earrings with tiny diamond Zhang Jiasun's chopstick. As Shui-Man was a little troubled, earrings gave Zhang Jiasun proud of Secretary Shui. The daughter of Mao family, they're the latest from wholehearted to Ning Shu. But now today at Gone future and don't run around to Shui-Man hurry up and have a child. And this pair of shoes now from Ferragamo's countryside. Secretary Shui let Mao Mao's mind have been tempered by the tough to work in the company. Shui-Man talked about coming back later. A married woman and saw her mother stare at Ning Shu with wide-eyed obviously. She knew that Zhang Jiasun would stay at home. Zhang Jiasun's mother was serving him real. How can you run around all the middle of the night? If you don't have smile were in the countryside, the Zhang family
they would have
already
tell the
difference between real and fake. Speechless. Yours are real.
So angry.
Why do you say they're imitation? She will be coming back tomorrow in front of her in-laws house. Shui Man panicked and took two steps even more unhappy. She's already a Miao surname. Yet Shui Man looked like she was going to do something. I can have it whenever I want. The Zhang family. Are you afraid of a member of the Zhang family? She was so guilty. Zhang Jiasen's parent heard his mother's words and stuttered. He felt that it was a little inappropriate. Angrily. Zhang Jiasen wished Zhang Miao as my wife after all. Surname. Ning Shu said her better. What's going on? She's now Zhang Jiasen's manager at the company. I'll leave first. The Miao family might be handed over to her in the future. My father said that my good we fall out with her. Shui Man Jiasen's mother glared at him, biting her lips in a woman managed to get married. A woman should stay at home. The gentle care of our family. Ning let her hand over the company and looked at his watch. Let the man do these things. I have to go to work. A woman should stay at home and raise things in the company. Zhang Jiasen's bag and Miao is a rich girl. Zhang Jiasen's mother, she knows saying a word. Miao. I don't want anything to happen. Zhang Jiasen tried to catch up with Ning Shu. Said to Zhang when he saw that general manager was about to I don't want Miao to know about your your brother-in-law and your company. Ning Shu left brother-in-law sad. Find me something sad when I see how best something relaxing. Have you really fallen in love with parents are from the countryside and want to live happily with stubborn about Zhang Jiasen casually? That's why Zhang Jiasen was in a daze for a moment. If there's anything in the future, to be honest, you have to discover was an innocent and saw Zhang Wenlan. She didn't like holding a sleeping child. You didn't agree to the father's request look on her face. On the other hand, Zhang Jiasen grew up in bitter water and crawled on his brother-in-law doesn't have a diploma. You didn't tell me that your parents were coming. For him to work in the last to know when they arrived. Okay. Why didn't Zhang Jiasen's father directly make a decision? He was a person who said to Zhang Jiasen frowned. Looked too many things. Can you give me the position of a workshop director? It was because he was the same kind of person. Anger and hostility flashed in his eyes. Miao's beauty Tan He was scared and didn't say anything. In the end, brother, can you give me some money? It's my first time going to a place like this. Everything. I want to buy something. You really fell in love with the clothes in the city look better. Seeing that Zhang Xiaomei said to Zhang Jiasen, Shui Man took it as a yes. Zhang Xiaomei rolled her eyes welled up in Shui Man's eyes. I don't want your money. She raised her head. I'll call Miao tomorrow. That way, someone will pay the bill. After Zhang Xiaomei finished speaking, and wiped away the tears on Shui Man's face. She felt that she was very smart. No, I don't like Miao. If it was the previous Miao. I can tell you with certainty that I have never liked Miao ATM machine. Shui Man smiled through Zhang Jiasen wasn't too sure about the current affectionate. I don't care about status. Miao was I just want to be with the company's matters every day. Zhang Jiasen took time to meet with him. Zhang Jiasen was appointed as the general manager a few days later. Zhang Jiasen took out a stack of money from his wallet and gave it to Zhang Jiasen. He said, was appointed your sister-in-law has to go to work. In the office, she doesn't have time to shop on the sofa. And watch money, and buy whatever you like. Chen-san's wrist. Zhang Xiaomei took the money. Put on his suit jacket. Her face was obviously unhappy. It was like an emperor. Spending her brother's money was completely different from spending other people's money. Zhang Jiasen was in high spirits today. Didn't feel bad spending other people's money. He looked very energetic and serious. His whole body was filled with an elite aura. He went to the balcony. It was also very charming. After a while, Zhang Jiasen had taken the first step to success. Zhang Jiasen saw that Ning Shu was looking at him and asked, Chapter 447. Is this the next morning? Zhang Jiasen stood up his brother-in-law Zhang Jiasen the company to find Ning Shu. Zhang Jiasen reached out and held Ning Shu's factory. Zhang Jiasen wiped his face. I am really happy now. And took Tan Hu to the factory. I feel that this is the happiest time of my life. When Ning Shu heard that Zhang Jiasen asked him to find a job for Tan Hu, we will have our own children. He glanced at Tan Hu. On weekends, in the garden, we will watch the children play. And sneered in his heart. We will be a happy family. Zhang Jiasen looked at Ning Shu and smile on his face. Can't I? It was as if he was imagining and said, and looking forward to that kind of life. I will arrange a suitable position for brother-in-law. I want to hold your hand and grow old together. Ning Shu was smiling at him like before. Was he imagining her a Shui Man? He was afraid that she would be angry and not give him face. Old together with Shui Man. It's up to you, right? Are we going back to the company at noon? Stop being so disgusting. We haven't eaten alone for a long time. Ning Shu put on a fake smile and said in your favorite Western restaurant. Of course we can grow old together. And I will make a reservation later. Zhang Jiasen said eagerly. Zhang Jiasen said softly to Ning Shu, I am serious. He bent down slightly and looked into Ning Shu's eyes. There was really no end to it. It was enough to act full of tenderness. What was the point of repeating it over and over again? Affection. Ning Shu raised his wrist to look at his watch and looked at it. Maybe I can't go. The meeting is about to start. I have something to do later. Miao. Let's talk about dinner later. To say something. Zhang Jiasen's eyes flashed with different expression. He swallowed his words. Miao cared about him. But now she only thought about work all day. Seemed to be a little nervous. Zhang Jiasan's face showed a helpless expression. He wanted to get what he wanted. My wife is a workaholic, Zhang Jiasan walked which back makes and me forth very in the office. I feel abandoned. Drank water indifferently. Ning smiled he was in a completely different state from I won't abandon you. After Zhang Jiasan his excitement and anxiety, looked at Tan He, manager, the department manager is in the meeting room. Ning directly asked Zhang Jiasan pushed the door open to carry the goods and said to Zhang Jiasan and put the finished products on the truck. Looked at Shueman when Tan He heard that it was a job, he realized that Shueman Man face didn't have any branded clothes on her body. But she also had ordinary earrings on her ears. Sister-in-law, we are a family. Were no longer branded. Can't you give me an easier job? After removing all the branded clothes on her supervisor, Ning Shu said with a smile, I will embarrass you. Secretary Tan He said to Ning Shu, the brooch you wore last time was pretty good. Ning Shu, why aren't you wearing it anymore? Workshop director, Secretary Shu's face turned pale. Why don't you go to heaven? Pale. Although brother-in-law is one of us, I borrowed it from a friend. The company has its own rules and regulations. Many people are not convinced that you are the workshop director. You go to the meeting room first. Take it slow. We will be there soon, and you will be promoted to workshop Secretary Shui out. Ning Shu said expressionlessly. Hurriedly went out. Tan He touched his chin and felt that what his sister-in-law said was right. Then he went to carry the bags. However, Tan He also overestimated himself. Zhang Jiasan saw that spoiled and lazy bastard like him do such hard work. Ning Shu wondered if she knew something before she turned around and left. Secretary Shu's family background is not bad. It's normal for her to have some design of the clothes. Zhang Jiasan said, had traveled through various worlds. I want to give you ancient and modern. Zhang Jiasan took out a fashionable from the box and opened it. Of course, there was a diamond necklace inside. To be a designer. The workmanship was very exquisite. He gave suggestions to Zhang Jiasan's face and added some new fashion elements. I bought this especially for you. However, the designs were refreshing. You are the general manager. Zhang Jiasan came out of the factory and went to the company. I used half as he entered the office to buy this for you. He saw Shueman Man bending over to water the plants Shui had a lot of brands on her. But was slightly raised and looked very sexy. I also bought a brand for you. Furthermore, Zhang Jiasan said gently was wearing a one-piece dress which wrapped around her butt. Ning Shu looked at the diamond necklace. A little itchy. This kind of diamond necklace was the style of wearing a dress to attend a banquet. Turned around it would be exaggerated to wear it normally. She smiled and then said with a little bitterness, Meow 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 like Jiasan, therefore, why didn't you come to find me recently? Did not believe that Zhang Jiasan bought this necklace for her. Zhang Jiasan sat on the chair and rubbed his forehead. But now he gave it to her. He looked a little tired and said, do you want me to help you put it on? No, my parents came from the countryside. Asked Ning Shu. Meow 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 went back to her parents' home. Ning Shu shook her head and closed the jewelry box and placed it on the table. Uncle and Auntie are here. Ning Shu's indifferent attitude made Zhang Jiasan feel frustrated. No need. If Shueman Man received this gift, the more likely you will be very happy. It's not good for you to go home as a secretary, Zhang Jiasan said. He felt that he could not show any value in front of Meow Meow Man to get involved. Because Meow 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 had everything. Shueman Man was a little unhappy. She did not care at all. Why? Ning Shu saw the hurt expression on Zhang Jiasan's face. So stupid and did not care at all. Meow 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 is stupid. Or are you trying to show but her parents aren't. Ning Shu and Zhang Jiasan entered the meeting room one after the other. Was sharp. Ning Shu did not say much knew when to stop and went straight to the point. She knew that she couldn't make her presence known in front of the general manager of the company. He will be responsible for the company's business and development. Come to my place and relax tonight. Ning Shu's father didn't say he wasn't feeling well. He narrowed his eyes and thought about something, wondering if Zhang Jiasan was joking or not. Shueman Man everyone don't doubt me. Thinking about something from today onwards. Since they were together in university, general manager, Shueman Man naturally knew some hard with my colleagues to make the company stronger. He looked really charming when he was deep in thought. Hearing Zhang Jiasan had indeed been feeling quite tired recently. Ning Shu looked at all of this in the afternoon. He followed Shueman Man to the Thompson residence than when she was the general manager, showering before having sex. These people recognized Shueman Man more than Ning Shu. He comforted Shueman Man with a few words. She had to protect this company pants and get rid of some of the current situation wasn't right. Zhang Jiasan could embezzle money from a luxurious mansion. What made Zhang Jiasan uneasy was Meow Meow Meow's attitude. If he did not have any accomplices or subordinates after returning from the countryside, Meow 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 had been angry and Zhang Jiasan gave an impassioned speech. Now Zhang Jiasan ended the meeting in a pleasant atmosphere in the countryside. Zhang Jiasan, at that time, was a little nervous when he married Meow Meow was now completely relieved. Shueman Man was so sad that the general manager of the company. Shueman Man was the woman he loved since university. Even the chairman would be a mere figurehead. He thought of leaving Meow 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 in the countryside first, Zhang Jiasan and then comforting the sad Shueman Man. Very soon, Shueman Man and Zhang Jiasan returned to the office. But now Meow Meow was causing trouble. When they opened the door, when they saw Shueman Man holding a jewelry box, he saw Ning Shu was placed on the table by the warehouse. Seeing that Ning Shu and Zhang Jiasan had returned, Ning Shu was shocked. Shueman Man quickly closed the box and put it on the table. and stepped on the foot of the person on the table, and she even used the heel of her shoe to grind it.
Man quickly said.
Zhang Jiasun groaned in pain as he swung his leg.
Is this your jewelry?
Ningxu turned around,
looked at Zhang
and saw that it
Jiasun
was Zhang
and
Jiasun.
said with some bad intentions.
Her expression was very exaggerated and shocked.
Jiasun,
face
why are you
changed.
here?
Are
She
you
quickly
okay?
looked at Zhang
Why didn't you
Jiasun
say
for
anything?
confirmation.
I thought it
Zhang
was that
Jiasun
pervert.
ignored
Does your foot hurt?
gaze.
Ningxu
picked
picked
up
up
the
the jewelry
jewelry
box and said
but
to
he was
Zhang
helpless
Jiasun,
in front of Ningxu.
I'm going to accompany Dad
calm
for
down.
a checkup.
Don't throw
You
a
should
tantrum.
pay more attention
I
to
know
the
you
company.
suffered a lot in the countryside.
Okay, be careful on the road.
It's my fault.
Zhang Jiasun
Ningxu
said gently.
narrowed her eyes.
He even opened
Zhang
the office
Jiasun
door
was
for
really
Ningxu
flexible.
and said again,
However,
be careful
when he
on the
came
road.
closer,
Ningxu
Ningxu
said to
smelled the scent of
Shui-Man-Man,
shower gel.
Secretary
Taking
Shui,
a bath
I'm
in the
leaving.
afternoon? Please
Haha,
take care.
She didn't know what he had
Shui-Man-Man's
done.
voice was
Now
trembling.
he was in front of her
Ningxu
with
saw
such a doting
Shui-Man-Man's
look.
pale face
Ningxu felt
and the
tired
smile
for
on her
Zhang
face.
Jiasun.
Seeing
You're not the only
Shui-Man-Man's
one who
pained
knows
look,
how to act.
he was secretly happy.
Ningxu shook her head.
As soon as Ningxu
she looked
left,
at Zhang Jiasun
Shui-Man-Man's
and said,
face fell.
I'm not angry,
especially when
I'm
she
just
saw Zhang
sad.
Jiasun
Your
treat
parents
Meow
don't
Meow
seem
so
to treat
well.
me as one
It
of
made
their own.
Shui-Man-Man panic.
I thought your parents accepted
especially
me,
when Zhang
so we got
Jiasun
married.
gave Meow
Now
Meow
it
Meow
seems
the
that's not
necklace
the
that
case.
should have been given to her.
Zhang Jiasun explained to Ningxu.
Shui-Man-Man
They're
looked
from the
at Zhang
countryside.
Jiasun with watery
Some of their
eyes
views are
and
different
an
from ours,
uncontrollable affection.
but they don't mean any
Zhang
harm.
Jiasun was
They're not
originally
polite
happy
to you.
about the promotion.
They treat you as one of their own.
Shui-Man-Man's sad face, he rubbed his eyebrows and said,
Chapter
Give this necklace to
448.
Meow 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 first.
Zhang Jiasun
I'll
patiently
buy another one
explained
for
to
you
Ningxu
tomorrow.
that the Zhang family
Shui-Man-Man
treated
shook
her
her
as
head
one
and
of their
said,
own.
I
As
don't
a
care
family
about
member.
the necklace.
That was why
I
they
want
were
this
so
necklace
direct
because
and
I want to
impolite
attend
her.
various events
That was why
with
they
you
asked her to
and
do
be able
things
to stand
and like
side
to
by
nag
side
her.
with you.
Although their
What I
words
care
were a
about
little
is your
harsh,
attitude
it
towards
was all
Meow
for
Meow
her
Meow.
own good.
Why are you
Ningxu
so good
was
to her?
speechless.
Hearing
Please don't treat
Shui-Man-Man's
me as one of
question,
your own.
Zhang
If you
Jiasun's
treat me
eyebrows
as one of
flashed
your
with
own,
impatience and
then I will be
gloominess.
tortured like
He
this.
said,
If
I've
you
been
don't
good
treat
to
me
Meow
as
Meow
one of
Meow
your
in
own,
the past,
then you
you
treat
also
me
know
as your
that it's
slave.
just a show.
Ningxu
You
grinned.
didn't say it before.
Zhang Jiasun
So
was
why do you
avoiding the
keep
main
saying
point
it now
and dwelling
Meow
on
Meow
the
Meow
trivial.
is just a chess
It was
piece.
obviously an
In
evil
the past,
mother-in-law
I could still
tormenting her
tolerate it.
daughter-in-law.
But now,
But in Zhang Jiasun's
as long as I
mouth,
see you
it
being
sounded
good to
so
Meow
good.
Meow Meow,
Zhang
my heart
Jiasun's
will feel
scumbag once again
uncomfortable.
refreshed
I'm
Ningxu's
jealous that Meow Meow
understanding
Meow
of
can stand
scumbags
by your side
among
and
all the
stand by your
scumbags
side
that
openly.
Ningxu had met.
But as for me,
Zhang Jiasun
I
was
can only
definitely
watch the
at the
man
top.
I like be good to
Scumbags
someone
weren't
else
afraid of
and be
scumbags,
someone else's
but
husband.
scumbags with culture.
Ningxu didn't know how to refute Zhang
Shui-Man-Man
Jiasun's
was so
argument about
uncomfortable
family
that she couldn't control
Zhang Jiasun
herself.
saw that Ningxu
Her body
didn't speak,
trembled slightly,
so he reached
as
out
if she
and
was
touched
extremely
Ningxu's
uncomfortable.
head. Don't be
Zhang
angry.
Jiasun sighed
It's
and
easy
said
to get
firmly,
old when you're angry.
You have to believe
Let's
me.
go home today.
I have no feelings for Meow
Ningxu,
Meow Meow,
who had his head
when
down,
I completely
shook his
controlled
head
the
and
Meow
said to
family,
Zhang Jiasun,
we'll get married.
I still can't
Hearing
go home.
Zhang Jiasun's
Dad
promise,
has been checking the accounts
Shui-Man-Man's heart
recently.
flashed with
I have to go
gloominess.
back and help.
How long do I have
Checking
to
the
wait?
accounts.
Meow Meow
When
Meow
did that
reached
happen?
out and wrapped
Why
her
are they
arms
suddenly
around
checking
Zhang
the
Jiasun's
accounts?
waist.
Zhang
I
Jiasun
just want to
looked a
stay
little
by your
shocked.
side, Jiasun.
Why didn't I know?
Without you, I'll die.
A few days ago,
This was in the
Dad
office.
just wants to see
Zhang
the company's
Jiasun
profits
had always
in the past
avoided
2
any
years.
intimate actions
Ningxu
with
said
Shui-Man-Man
lightly.
in public.
I have to
But
help
when
too.
she cried and wet
I
his
see.
shirt,
Zhang
Jiasun's
Jiasun nodded
heart
and smiled at
softened.
Ningxu.
In the end,
Since
he
you
didn't
have
push
worked
Shui-Man-Man
away,
you don't have to
this
go
was
back.
the reason why
I'll
Zhang
send you
Jiasun
back.
liked Shui-Man-Man.
I also have work to
He
talk
felt
to
the
Dad
value
about.
of his existence
Ningxu
from
nodded.
Shui-Man-Man.
Ningxu
Shui-Man-Man
deliberately talked
worshipped
to
Zhang
Zhang
Jiasun about the
respected him,
accounts
and adored
He
him.
had to see if
It
Zhang
wasn't
Jiasun
like when
would
he
do
was
anything.
facing Meow Meow
When
Meow.
Meow
The
returned
halo
home,
behind Meow Meow
Meow's
Meow made
father
him
saw
unable to
Ningxu
breathe,
and Zhang Jiasun
was
coming
a
back
male
together.
chauvinist.
He didn't
In
say
the past
anything
few
and
years in
treated
the
Zhang
company,
Jiasun as
people
usual.
said that he was
This made
relying on
Ningxu a
women
little confused
to get to where he
Did
was today.
Ningxu's father not
Zhang
find
Jiasun
anything?
remembered
In
these
front of
words
the
in
Meow
his heart.
couple, Zhang Jiasun was more attentive to Ningxu than usual. For example, he only took
Chapter
Ningxu's favorite
459.
dishes.
No,
Zhang Jiasun
Meow
knew
Meow's favorite
that he was
dishes.
just a poor boy
She
from the
always showed
countryside.
her love for Ningxu
In this
through
big
her
city,
small actions.
he had no capital and
Ningxu
no
accepted
connections.
Zhang Jiasun's
Even if
service
he
with a
worked
clear
hard in this
conscience.
city for a lifetime,
Since Zhang Jiasun
he
was
would
in
not
a
be
hurry,
able to take root.
there was no need to
Without
refuse.
these external
He
material
was just putting on a
conditions,
show.
love was a
Zhang
joke.
Jiasun felt
Zhang
that he had
Jiasun
not
could
done
only
enough,
take the
so he
unconventional
wanted to
path
stay for the night
and pay some price to
Ningxu's heart
survive in
suddenly
this city.
felt a little bad.
His family's
He had already done it
expectations
with Shui
and his
Man
desire
Man.
to succeed
Could it be
were
that
all
he still had to
reasons
do it
that
with
made
her at
Zhang
night?
Jiasun use
Ning
his
Shu glanced at
advantages.
Zhang Jiasun's
With the
lower
cornerstone,
part.
he could
Can he
step
take
on the
it?
cornerstone
Zhang
and
Jiasun
climb
caught the
even
look in
higher.
Ning Shu's
Marrying
eyes
a woman
and
could
raised
save
his
him
handsome
20 years
eyebrows.
of hard work.
Even if people in the company called him devilishly charming, he would endure obviously it. Thinking one day Ningxu wanted he would be able to wash away the shower. Zhang Jiasun lay on the bed and hugged Ningxu in his arms. Meow meow, let's have a child. Conditions, Ningxu smiled and nodded even more. Okay. Without the position of general manager, revealed a smile. Ningxu accompanied Meow's father to the hospital. But if I have a child now, what about my work? She usually boiled soup for Meow's father. Your parents don't agree to the child's like a housewife. When the time comes, father looked at families will definitely quarrel. And said with disappointment, I'm actually very afraid of your mother. I don't want to have a conflict with your mother. Because you even gave him the position of general manager. Heard Ningxu's words. He must be dreaming. He was stunned and asked. Ningxu held a pair of scissors in her hand with Meow Meow Meow's brains. She wouldn't have thought of this at all. Mom, Zhang Jiasun was a little annoyed as he brushed his hair. Glanced at her and nodded. Meow 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 pregnant, she said, was the best way to solve the current situation. Zhang Jiasun. The pregnant Meow cheated our family by cheating work anymore and embezzling the company's money. Meow Meow Meow's reasonable words. I know what I'm doing. Zhang Jiasun unable to refute. If I can't handle it, was doing it for the stability of her family. Ningxu put the lily into the vase leisurely. Heart was filled with anxiety. Father looked at Ningxu and Zhang Jiasun the most angry. Very good. Was that Meow Meow like daughter was disobedient? What about Zhang Jiasun's sharp gaze swept across Meow's mother looked at Ningxu inch by inch. Do you want to drive her out of the company? He revealed a smile. Ningxu smiled no matter if her child's surname is Meow or Zhang. Let her stay in the company. It's not good to drive her out. You're right. Ningxu already had a plan in mind, wrapped himself in the blanket, and went to sleep. He had to spit out everything that he had his hand on the Meow family's arm with warmth. Occasionally, Ningxu would go to the company. Why did Dad see that Zhang Jiasun was very busy? Is there something wrong with the accounts? If he was not busy signing documents, Ningxu was very awake in his meetings and giving advice. But he still had a sleepy look on his face. No longer had that gloomy aura around him. Instead, Dad felt that the company's profits were too low. So he wanted to check. Temperament seemed to have become someone was embezzling money. The current Zhang Jiasun narrowed his eyes and said indifferently. Even the environment gaze towards Zhang Jiasun under the influence of the financial crisis, unswerving devotion. It's good to be able to make profits. The attractiveness of a successful man to a woman. Closed down. It was probably because she hadn't been in the company recently. Zhang Jiasun coaxed Ningxu. Started if someone is really embezzling money, for example, the scarf around her neck, such a parasite stay in the company. Was really vain. Ningxu yawned and said, he should have found something. Even when she was at work, Dad has been very angry still wore these things without a trace. Zhang Jiasun's hand that was placed on Ningxu's arm trembled. Then he said talisman. Go to when sleep Zhang Jiasun saw that Ningxu had arrived, slowed his breathing. He stopped what he was doing like he was sleeping. Not long after, Shuemanman hesitated for a moment beside him had woken up. Meow meow, why are you opened his eyes. Zhang Jiasun smoking on the balcony. Ningxu said, standing on the balcony to see you. His dark figure was like a ghost. Zhang Jiasun stood on the balcony for a long time with a burning cigarette in his hand. Grabbed Ningxu's hand he went downstairs. I'm sorry. Ningxu followed him barefoot recently and neglected at the stairs. When we heard the voices of Zhang Jiasun, we'll have a woman coming from the kitchen. Bang. A clear sound of a porcelain cup falling to the woman's voice heard. It seemed that she was a servant of the Meow family and had worked for the Meow family for several years. However, the coffee fell to the ground, and the servants' voices were very low. She heard Zhang Jiasun say that they were going to have a baby. He went directly to the kitchen door and spilled the coffee. What are you doing? Zhang Jiasun's face darkened when he saw Ningxu. He looked calm. Shuemanman bit her lips the cup and squatted down to pick up the pieces of the cup on the ground. I can't find a cup. Was extremely so pale. I asked Aunt Ping to get me a cup. Hit hard. Why did you come down? Just ask the cleaner to clean it up. Over Aunt Ping's face. Zhang Jiasun saw that Shuemanman couldn't control her emotions at all and saw the young master looking for something in the kitchen. Ningxu said with a smile, "So I got a cup for him. It's okay. I didn't ask you what you were going to explain." This scene was really comfortable to watch. Obviously believing especially his excuse. When Zhang Jiasun bullied Shuemanman took a sip of water. Ningxu glanced at Shuemanman. Why didn't you squatting down to pick up the pieces? Why did you come down? It seemed that she didn't hear Zhang Jiasun's words at all. Aren't you afraid of catching a cold in such a cold day? Shuemanman, when I woke up, who was in a trance, you weren't in bed. By a piece of glass. No one was in the bathroom. A drop of blood immediately appeared on her finger. Ningxu rubbed his eyes. Zhang Jiasun took a deep breath and said to Shuemanman in a stern voice, "The water in the cup. Get out and put it down. The cleaner to clean it up." He carried Ningxu and smiled gently at Zhang Jiasun's roar. "I'll carry you upstairs." The emotions that she had been suppressing completely broke out. Tears fell down her face. He didn't say anything, on her finger and let Zhang Jiasun carry him upstairs. Ningxu's eyes were shining. When he turned around, he saw Aunt Ping hurrying back to her room. Much. Ningxu narrowed his eyes and looked away. Who would be tired if he didn't go back and forth between two women? Of course, he couldn't see it with a shirt and tie. You scared the little girl to tears. But it was exposed when he was wearing pajamas. Shuemanman was not a little girl. When Zhang Jiasun heard Ningxu say that Shuemanman was a little girl, Zhang Jiasun was quite all over. It was as if he was an old cow eating young grass, and his mistress outside. Then I'll leave first. However, this was all based on the fact that Meow 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 was
Take care of your wound
and easily deceived.
It's not good if it drips
Meow
on the
Meow
scarf.
Meow probably never thought that Zhang Jiasun would cheat on her.
Man Man's body
She had a kind of confidence in Zhang Jiasun faster.
She didn't know what
left.
he was talking about
Zhang
with the
Jiasun
servant
closed
in the
middle
office
of the
door
night
and held
Ning
Shui
Shu
Man
felt
Man's
that she
bleeding
needed
hand.
to pay attention
Your
to
wound
the
needs
servant.
to be taken care
Zhang
of.
Jiasun
I don't
carried
need
Ning
you
Shu
to
to
care.
the bed.
Shui
And
Man
laid down
shook
himself.
off Zhang Jiasun's
He directly
hand and
placed
looked
Ning
sad.
Shu's foot on his chest. Ning Shu was shocked.
You're
She
going to
wanted
have a
to
child
retract
with
her
her
foot out of
meow.
reflex.
But I want to have a
Zhang
child.
Jiasun held her
Why
down.
can't you give me a child?
Zhang Jiasun's tone was
Every
doting.
time she was with
Don't
Zhang
move.
Jiasun,
You didn't
Zhang
wear your
Jiasun
shoes
would
when
take
you went
precautions.
downstairs just now.
Zhang Jiasun's
I'll
face
warm
turned
you up
cold
so that you won't
We've
feel
discussed it
uncomfortable
before.
when you sleep.
Before our relationship
Zhang
is
Jiasun's
made
body
public,
was very warm.
we can't have a child.
Ning Shu felt a wave
Zhang
of heat
Jiasun
passing
didn't
to her
want
foot.
an illegitimate
It was
child
very
to
warm.
appear.
Ning
It would
Shu
affect
narrowed
his
her
prestige
eyes.
and image
This
of
man
the
was
entire
really
company.
No wonder
At
Meow
least
Meow
before
Meow
his
fell for
marriage
this
with
man.
Meow Meow Meow
Ning
was
Shu put her
dissolved.
foot on
Such a
Zhang
thing
Jiasun's
couldn't happen.
chest.
But
It
you're
was
going to
indeed
have a
very
child
warm.
with Meow Meow Meow.
Zhang Jiasun laughed
Shui Man
softly.
saw Zhang
His
Jiasun's
chest
cold
shook.
face
Ning
and
Shu
felt
asked,
even more sad.
"What are you laughing
Zhang
at?"
Jiasun rubbed his
Nothing.
forehead and
I
said
just
helplessly,
thought that our future children
"Can't you
will
see
be
that
very
I'm just
cute.
brushing her off?
You will be just like
How can
you.
I have a child
Zhang
with her?"
Jiasun smiled.
You should
His
resign.
eyes looked very
If you
gentle
stay in
and
the
warm
company
under
with
the
such
light.
emotions,
Ning Shu,
people will find
he
out
didn't
sooner
sleep
or
the whole
later.
night.
And
To be
still
honest,
wanted to play affectionate.
Zhang Jiasun was a
She
little
still had to
impatient
deal
with
with
him.
Shui Man
What a
Man's
sin.
emotional behavior.
Ning Shu chanted
If it
the
was
clear
at
heart
home,
mantra in
a
her
very
heart.
private place,
She really wanted
Zhang
to tell
Jiasun
Zhang
might be able
Jiasun
to comfort
that the
Shui
kiss
Man
marks on his
patiently.
body were already
But in
showing.
such a public place,
She still
people
had to
could
pretend
pretend
that
that
she
she
didn't
didn't
know.
know. They could
She
be
was really
exposed at
testing
any
him.
time.
However,
Zhang Jiasun knew
Ning
better
Shu
than
found
anyone
that
how
chanting the
difficult
clear
it was
heart
to
mantra
climb to
was
this
very
point.
beneficial.
So he couldn't
It
make
could calm
any
one's
mistakes.
mood.
The
More
irrational
importantly,
Shui Man Man
it
was
could
like
also
a bomb.
remove the negative emotions and spiritual dirt that had accumulated in her heart. Now that Zhang
Chapter
Jiasun didn't
460,
sleep, and
what
pulled
Zhang
her to show
Jiasun
his
meant
deep
was
love
for
for
Shui
her,
Man Man to
Ning
stay
Shu
in
wanted to
Tang
kick
Chen's
him.
mansion.
He must
and
have
have
a
a
motive
motive
for being
when she
so
had nothing to
attentive.
do.
The next
She didn't
morning,
want to
Ning
arouse
Shu
suspicion
didn't look
in the
very
company.
good.
After
Shui Man
all,
Man
he didn't
panicked
sleep
when
much.
she heard Zhang
Even
Jiasun
Zhang
ask her
Jiasun
to
didn't look
resign.
very good.
She had to
When
stay
Mother
by
Meow
Zhang
saw
Jiasun's
this,
side no
she
matter
covered
what.
her mouth and laughed.
She had to protect such
Although
an
young
excellent
people are
man.
healthy,
Moreover,
they still need to
there
control
were many
themselves.
young girls who had
Ning
just
Shu,
graduated from
a
school.
smile appeared on
Shui
Zhang
Man Man
Jiasun's
knew
face.
that she wasn't young
He glanced
anymore.
at Ning Shu with
She
a
was
smile
28
and said,
years old at most.
"Got it."
Naturally,
Mother Meow
she
smiled
couldn't compare to
mischievously.
those young girls.
Obviously,
her only
nothing had
advantage
happened,
was that she had
but
a pure
Zhang Jiasun's
relationship with
behavior
Zhang
made it
Jiasun
seem
in
as
university.
if they had done something
I have to
last
work.
night.
The
Jiasun,
family
don't
of four
worry.
sat down
I'll
to
be
eat
careful.
breakfast.
Shui
Man
Man
served
didn't
breakfast.
care about her
Ning
grievances.
Shu looked at Auntie
She
Ping.
hurriedly promised
She was
Zhang
the
Jiasun,
most senior servant
and
in
even
the Miao
acted
family,
coquettishly,
and knew everything
Zhang
about the
Jiasun
Miao
nodded.
family.
Ning Shu,
Aunt Ping placed
who had
the
returned
vegetable
to her
salad
office,
and milk in
overheard
front
the
of Miao's
conversation
father.
between the two at the door and laughed.
It was Ning
Zhang
Shu's
Jiasun
idea
and
to
Shui
let
Man
Miao's
Man were
father
like
eat the
snakes
vegetable
trying to
salad
swallow an
every
elephant.
morning for the
Zhang
sake of his
Jiasun
father's
wanted
health.
to devour the Miao
However,
family.
last night,
While Shui
Aunt
Man
Ping
Man
and
was
Zhang
no longer
Jiasun were in the
satisfied
kitchen
with
in the
Zhang
middle of the
Jiasun,
night,
keeping a
Ning Shu
mistress
didn't
in a
suspect
golden
that
house.
Zhang Jiasun
She wanted
and
to
Aunt
stand
Ping
by
were
Zhang
having an affair.
Jiasun's side openly.
However,
they were
Aunt
both
Ping was
greedy
already
and
50
selfish
years
people.
old.
Ning Shu was
suspected
speechless.
that Zhang
Meow
Jiasun
Meow
and
Meow
Aunt
truly
Ping
loved
had a
Zhang
special
Jiasun,
relationship.
but Zhang Jiasun
Meow's
didn't
father
care at
didn't
all.
like eating grass.
He liked Shui Man Man.
He said to Ning
Shui
Shu
Man Man's
helplessly,
love was based on
"It wasn't
material
easy for
things.
humans to
If
evolve to
Zhang
the top of
Jiasun
the food
didn't have his
chain.
current
But
status,
you let me eat
there
grass
was a
every day.
50% chance
I want to
that
eat
Shui
meat."
Man Man wouldn't
Ning
have
Shu
chosen
shrugged.
him.
Okay,
Perhaps Zhang
since you're
Jiasun
so
felt
pitiful,
that love with
I'll
mutual
let you eat
benefits
meat
was
buns
stable
today.
and secure.
Meow's
Love
father
with
pushed
stable
away the
benefits
vegetable
could
salad
also fall apart
and drank
because
the
of
soy
benefits.
milk while eating the
Ning
fried
Shu
dough
felt
sticks
that
and
it was
buns.
about time to
Ning
make a
Shu
move.
said to Aunt
He
Ping,
went to the police
"Put this
station
away."
to visit Aunt Ping.
Aunt Ping was stunned.
During this time,
She said,
Aunt
"Okay."
Ping had lost
Then
a lot
she
of
took
weight.
the vegetable
Her
salad
cheekbones
away.
were protruding,
Zhang Jiasun's
and
eyes
she wasn't in
flashed.
good spirits.
He ate breakfast
Her
in
hair
silence.
looked much whiter than
After
before.
breakfast,
Her brows were filled with despair and worry.
went to work together.
Ning-Shu didn't pity
as soon
her
as
at
they
all.
got into the car,
In the original plot,
Zhang Jiasun
Aunt
helped
Ping had
Ning-Shu
succeeded.
fasten the seat
Although
belt.
he didn't know
He
what
looked very
benefits Zhang
gentle.
Jiasun had
Ning-Shu
given her.
said,
Since
I
she
can
had
do it
chosen
myself.
this path, you don't have to
should
bear
trouble
the
me.
consequences of
I want
being
to fasten the
discovered.
seat belt for
Still
you.
not willing to
I
talk?
want to be good to you.
Ning-Shu sat
Zhang
opposite
Jiasun
Aunt Ping
said as he turned
and
the
looked at
steering
her
wheel
through the bulletproof
Ning-Shu
glass.
almost couldn't
Aunt
help
Ping's
but roll
lips
his
quivered,
eyes.
but she didn't
Zhang
say
Jiasun's
anything.
action was not
She
out
was in
of
a
love.
trance.
He wanted
It was
to deceive
obvious
Meow
that the
Meow.
interrogation
Meow
at the
Meow,
police
did
station
Dad tell
had
you
taken a
about the
toll on her.
investigation of the
Don't
account
forget
book?
about your son.
He didn't look very
Your
good
son
this
will be
morning.
expelled from school
Zhang
because of
Jiasun
you.
said to Ning-Shu
Although the Meow
casually.
family is
Ning-Shu didn't
insignificant
seem
in
to
the
care.
city,
Dad
Dealing
said
with
that
your
whoever
son is
did it
still
will be
very
severely
easy.
punished.
Ning
But
Shu
he
said
didn't tell me who
indifferently.
did it. Mrs. Ping's thin face twitched,
Zhang Jiasun
and she
looked
looked a
even
little
more
angry.
terrified.
Didn't Dad
She stood
tell
up
you who did it?
agitatedly and
Ning
begged
Shu
Ning
shook
Shu
his
through
head.
the glass.
No,
Miss, I
but I
beg
can
you.
see that Dad
This
is
has
very
nothing to do
angry.
with my son.
It should be someone
Please
he
don't
trusts.
do anything to my son.
Zhang Jiasun's pupil
Then tell me
shrank.
why.
He pursed his lips and didn't say anything else.
Why did you
When
poison
Ning
my
Shu
father's
arrived at the
medicinal
company,
cuisine?
she met
Ning
Shui
Shu
Man
asked.
Man, who was at
Aunt
work
Ping
at the
told her
entrance.
not to hurt her
Ning
son.
Shu looked at
But
Shui
she
Man
was hurting
Man,
Meow Meow
and her
Meow's
eyes
father,
fell on Shui Man
hurting
Man's
Meow
feet.
Meow's relatives.
It was a pair of branded
How could
shoes.
Aunt Ping have the nerve
Although
to
the
ask
design
for
was
help?
low-key,
Aunt Ping
Ning
shook
Shu
her head.
still recognized it.
I can't say.
Ning Shu
I
laughed
really
in his
can't.
heart.
I
When
gave
the
you a
time
chance,
comes,
but you didn't
I'll
take
make you
it.
spit out everything
Ning
you
Shu
took.
stood up.
Shui Man Man's
Take care of
expression
yourself.
changed when she
I
saw
won't come
Zhang
to see you
Jiasun
in the
and
future.
Meow Meow together.
Actually,
She
I don't
quickly
care
came
about
over
your
to greet
confession
Zhang
at all.
Jiasun and
Ning
Ning
Shu
Shu didn't have to
She
beg
put on a
Aunt Ping.
professional
As for
expression
Aunt
and said
Ping
to
wanting
Zhang
to take
Jiasun,
all the blame for
Manager,
Zhang Jiasun's
you
murder,
have a meeting at
Ning
10
Shu
o'clock.
didn't care at all.
Ning Shu
Anyway,
smiled and said,
Aunt Ping had to
"What
pay
meeting?
the price for
I'll
what
go
she had
too."
done.
I haven't
Seeing that
attended
Ning Shu
any
was about
meetings
to
in the
leave,
company.
Aunt Ping
Zhang
hurriedly
Jiasun
stopped
said
Ning Shu.
casually, "Miss,
It's
wait.
not an important
I can
meeting.
tell you.
It's about
But you
sales.
have to promise me
Don't
one
you
thing.
need to go to the factory?
If you want to say it, then
Yes,
say it.
I have to go to
if
the
you
factory.
don't want to say it, then
Ning
forget
Shu
it."
nodded and turned
As
to
for your
leave.
condition, I won't agree. You don't
After
have the
Ning
right
Shu
to
left,
negotiate with me.
Zhang Jiasun
Even
frowned
if you
and
don't
said to Shui
confess,
Man Man,
there will be evidence.
next time. Moreover,
Don't do anything
you are a
groundless.
murderer. Your
Sooner
son
or
will be
later,
implicated
you'll be
because
exposed.
of you. Be it his
Shui
studies
Man Man
or
bit
work.
her lips and lowered
She
her
still
head.
wanted to agree
She looked
to
a
the
little
condition.
wronged.
She
Zhang
was dreaming.
Jiasun opened the
Aunt
office
Ping
door,
cried her
and
heart
Shui
out.
Man Man followed
Ning
him
Shu
in.
left without
Be
looking
careful.
back. I don't
After
want to
leaving
fail.
the police
Be
station,
careful in
Ning
front of
Shu
Meow
took a
Meow
deep
Meow.
breath.
Otherwise,
a woman must
she'll
take
find
good care
out
of
sooner
herself.
or later.
There was no way
Zhang
to change her
Jiasun rubbed his
parents.
brows.
But what she
Miao
could
Ji
do
is
was
checking
not
the
easily
accounts.
entrust the
I
rest
can't
of
look
her
for
life
you.
to others.
Miao Ji
After
is checking
marriage,
the accounts.
she had to face her
The finance
husband's family.
department didn't even
After
inform
marriage,
me.
she
Zhang
had to give
Jiasun's
birth to
expression
children,
was a little
take
gloomy.
care of the housework,
Hearing that,
take care
Shui
of her
Man Man's
in-laws,
face flashed
and
with
call her
panic.
parents who had
She
never
quickly
raised
asked,
her for a day.
will they find out
if
about
she met
you?
a man who wasn't
What are you
stingy
shouting
at this
about?
time,
What did I do?
her life would be like
Why would they
suffering
find
in
out
hell.
about me?
Instead
Zhang
of being
Jiasun
heartbroken
coldly
and
looked at
getting a
Shui Man
divorce,
Man.
she
Shui
should
Man
stick
Man
to
took
her
a deep
own
breath.
ideas,
Seeing
and not
that Zhang
entrust others
Jiasun was
easily.
sitting steadily,
Ning Shu was
her
very
beating heart
satisfied
also
with her
calmed
current
down.
life.
Zhang
Even if
Jiasun
she was
had
alone,
the ability to
even
solve
if she
this.
was just a soul,
When Ning
she
Shu
could
arrived
live
at the
freely.
factory,
In every
he was
world,
told that the
she would
latest
meet
design
different
draft
people,
was stolen.
different parents,
A designer
and different
said
friends.
with guilt.
Every
When I
woman
left,
could live a
I didn't
colorful
put the
life,
design draft
even
in
if
the
she
safe.
didn't have a man.
I left it on the
a
table.
man like Zhang
In
Jiasun
the end,
should
when
be
I came this
humanely
morning,
destroyed.
it was gone.
She had stayed in
The
this
latest
world
batch
for a
of
long
spring
time
design drafts
and had
was
enough
the painstaking
painstaking
hands.
effort of the
It
entire
was time
design
to
department
act.
and Ning
Zhang
Shu.
Jiasun had
They
been the
wanted to
general
rely on
manager
the
for
spring
half a
design
month
to make a splash,
and his work was
now
getting
the
more
design
and more
draft
handy.
was gone. Standing in the office overlooking the entire city, Zhang Jiasun's
Chapter
heart was full of
450.
satisfaction.
Hearing that the design
Looking
drafts
down
were
at the
missing,
mountains,
Ning
Zhang
Shu's first
Jiasun now
reaction
felt like
was
an
that the
ancient
design
emperor
drafts
who was
were
on Mount
useless.
Tai.
Regardless
Regardless
of
of where
where
they
they
went,
Zhang Jiasun
stealing
looked
the
at
design
Shui Man
drafts
Man,
was
who
definitely
organizing
something
the
done by a
documents.
competitor.
Status,
Ning Shu
money,
scanned the
and
designer's
women were a
faces.
man's lifelong
Ning
pursuit.
Shu went to check
He
the
would soon get
surveillance
them.
footage.
General
What surprised
Manager,
Ning
there's
Shu
a
was that
meeting
the
in
person
15
who stole the
minutes.
design drafts
Shui Man
was
Man
actually
said to
Zhang
Zhang
Jiasun's
Jiasun.
brother-in-law.
Zhang Jiasun
Tanhayu.
smiled faintly.
Tanhayu
Got
came
it.
to the factory and bragged that Ning Shu was his sister-in-law.
Shui
and that his
Man Man looked at
brother-in-law
the
was
high-spirited
Zhang
Zhang
Jiasun.
In the video,
The current Zhang
Tanhayu
Jiasun
came to
was
the
no
designer's
longer gloomy
office,
like before,
and the security
he seemed
guard
to have the
stopped him.
confidence to
Tanhayu
control
threatened
everything
the
in his
security
hands.
guard to fire him.
Every time she
and
saw
said
this,
that the factory
Shui
was
Man
his
Man's
sister-in-law
heartbeat would become chaotic.
Tanhayu went into
She
the
loved
office
this man
and
more.
rummaged around.
Zhang Jiasun
Then he
tidied
saw
his
the design
clothes,
drafts on the
pushed
table.
open the office
He stuffed
door,
them into his
and entered
clothes
the
and
meeting
ran
room.
away.
The
Ning Shu
department
was
heads
speechless.
who were in the meeting
Ning
room
Shu
had all
fired
arrived.
the designer.
They were
who
all
put the
waiting
design
for
drafts on the table. Zhang Jiasun liked the feeling of being in the spotlight.
Why?
Why did you fire me?
He was still a subordinate
because
of one
your
of the
carelessness.
department heads.
You caused
but
such
now,
a huge loss
these
to the
department
company.
heads have
Do you
become
think
his
you can
subordinates.
still stay in the company?
Zhang Jiasun
the
walked
female
into the
designer
meeting room.
was indignant.
Just as he was
She
about
took
to
off her
speak,
work pass
the
and
office
threw it
door
on the
was
ground.
pushed open.
I don't
The
want
sound
to
was
stay
very
in a
loud.
company that
Then
doesn't
5 or 6
distinguish right
people
from
walked
wrong.
in.
The
Zhang
designer
Jiasun's
turned and
expression
left.
was stern.
Ning Shu said,
He said coldly,
"Wait,
which
you
department
can't
are
leave
you
like
from?
this? Don't you
I've
know
already
that we're
called
in a
the
meeting
police.
now? You are
We're the
suspected
police.
of stealing
The
trade
person at the
secrets."
front took out his
When
police
Ning Shu
badge and
checked the
arrest
surveillance
warrant.
footage,
You're Zhang
he felt
Jiasun,
that
right?
the designer
You're
did it
under
on
arrest.
purpose.
Zhang
She
Jiasun
deliberately
was
put the
stunned.
design
Then he
drafts on the
said coldly,
table for Tanhu
"What
to
law did I
steal.
break?
The designer
If you
was
want to
wronged.
arrest me,
I
you
didn't
have to
steal
show
it.
evidence.
Why are you
The police
accusing me
can't
of
just
stealing
arrest
the design
people.
drafts?
You're corrupt.
You don't have any evidence.
Someone reported you.
Why are you slandering
We already
me?
have concrete
The
evidence."
designer took out her
The
phone
leader of the
and called
police said
Zhang
to the
Jiasun.
team members,
"How long
"Arrest
have you
him."
been in the company?"
Zhang Jiasun's
You don't
heart
know
trembled.
anything. He
Ning
wanted
Shu's
to say
expression
something,
was
but he
very
was
cold.
handcuffed.
He watched the designer
were
call
very
Zhang
cold.
Jiasun.
It made
Half
Zhang
an hour
Jiasun's
later,
heart turn
Zhang
cold.
Jiasun rushed
His body
over.
trembled
After
uncontrollably.
understanding the whole process, Ning Shu looked at the surveillance footage and asked, "When were these cameras installed?"
Chapter 461.
Ning Shu sneered.
Corruption and bribery?
You don't care about the
What was
cameras
going on?
now.
How
Your
could something
brother-in-law
like this
stole the
happen?
design drafts,
Zhang
and the
Jiasun's
designer
first reaction
Zhang Jiasun
was that
frowned,
Shui Man
looking
had
very
betrayed him.
distressed. Only Shui
Manager,
Man knew about
I didn't
this.
steal the design
Zhang
drafts at
Jiasun
all.
was escorted out
I've
of
been
the
in the
office.
company for so
Along
many
the
years.
way, he was
There's
met
no
with
reason
all
for
kinds
me
of
to
gazes,
steal the design drafts.
which made Zhang Jiasun
You can blame
feel
me
like
for
he was
being
being
careless.
dismembered. But you
A
can't
few
pin
minutes
the crime
ago,
of stealing
he was
on my
still
head.
the general manager
a designer
of the
needs a
company.
reputation.
Now he was about to
If I have
become
a
a prisoner
reputation for
Shui
stealing,
Man hid
which
at the
company
side
would
and
dare
saw
to
the
hire
scene.
me?
She
The
was so
designer
scared
said
that her face
indignantly.
turned pale.
Why would I do
She
something
carried her
like
bag
this that would
and
destroy
rushed
my
back
own
to the
future?
Thompson residence.
Tan Heyu was also
She took out her
escorted in by the
suitcase
security
and
guards.
swept all the cosmetics
Tan Heyu,
and jewelry
who
on
was
the
being
table
held by
into
the
it.
security
Then,
guards.
he
was
opened
still
the
cursing.
wardrobe and stuffed
Tan
all the
Heyu
clothes into the suitcase.
It really
Zhang
couldn't
Jiasun
fit
looked
them,
at Tan Heyu
so he
coldly.
found another suitcase.
You really can't change
and put
your
away the
ways.
shoes
Zhang
and the
Jiasun
shower gel
pulled
in the
Tan
bathroom
Heyu's collar.
on the one
and
hand,
dragged him to the
it was
front
to
of the
remove
computer
the traces
to
of her
show him
life
the
in this
surveillance
house.
footage.
On the other
Tan
hand,
Heyu looked at it.
these things
and
were very
immediately
valuable
begged Zhang
and were
Jiasun
treasured
for
by
mercy.
Shui Man.
At that time,
Shui Man's
a person
heart was
came to
beating
me
very
and asked me
fast.
to find this kind
Thinking
of
of the
paper
scene
with
when
clothes
Zhang
drawn on
Jiasun
it.
was taken
He
away.
gave me 20,000
Shui Man
renminbi.
tried her best to
I
calm
thought
herself
20,000
down.
renminbi
It's
was
fine,
more
it'll
than
definitely be
Shinku's
fine.
monthly salary of
Zhang
moving
Jiasun
things
was
around.
so powerful.
And
Bastard.
there was still Meow Meow
Zhang
Meow.
Jiasun gave
Meow
Tan
Meow
Heyu
Meow
a
loved
punch,
Zhang Jiasun
which
so
made Tan
much,
Heyu fall
she
to
would
the ground
definitely
and
bring
cry
Zhang
out.
Jiasun back.
Ning Shu indifferently
Zhang
looked
Jiasun
at
had
Zhang
the Miao
Jiasun's
family
action.
behind him.
Seeing
As
Ning
long as
Shu
the
like
Miao
this,
family didn't
Zhang
pursue this
Jiasun
matter,
pulled Tan Heyu's
everything
collar
would be fine,
and punched him a
Shui
few more
Man
times.
couldn't figure out
Zhang
how the
Jiasun
matter had
rubbed
been
his
exposed.
eyebrows and said to Ning
She was
Shu,
even more afraid
Meow
that she
Meow,
would
I'm
be
sorry.
implicated.
When he was in the
Just as Shui
countryside,
Man was
his
about
hands
to
and
leave
feet
with a
were a little
suitcase in
dirty.
each hand.
I thought it would
She
be
heard the
fine
sound
once
of the
he
door
came to
being
the city.
unlocked.
But I
Shui
didn't
Man
expect
was
that he would
shocked.
make such a big
Only
mess.
she and Zhang
Even
Jiasun
if he
had the
kill
keys
him,
to this
it
house.
won't make up for it.
Could it be that
Now
Zhang
the most
Jiasun had
important
returned?
thing is
The
to
door
redesign
opened,
the spring
and a
style.
few men walked in.
Don't make this a
When
big
they saw
deal.
Shui Man,
If the
they said
workers know that
directly,
without the
"You
design
must be
drafts,
Shui
they
Man,
can't work,
You are
which will cause
suspected of
panic.
concealing your crimes
Zhang
and money
Jiasun said to
laundering.
Ning Shu in
You
a low
can't
voice.
take anything from this house.
There's a hierarchy of
Shui
priorities.
Man knew that Zhang
Ning Shu
Jiasun
looked
was
at
corrupt,
Zhang Jiasun,
but she didn't
various
call the
thoughts
police.
flashed through his mind.
She covered up for
For a
Zhang
moment,
Jiasun.
Ning
and
Shu
used the
felt
money
that
that
Zhang
Zhang
Jiasun
Jiasun
was
obtained
behind this
illegally
matter
to buy things.
Who is the
buy
person
jewelry,
who gave you the
and
money?
help Zhang
Ning
Jiasun
Shu said
transfer
to
his
Tan
assets.
Heyu, who was
This
grimacing in
constituted a
pain.
crime of money
Tan Heyu
laundering.
said,
I
when
don't
Meow
know.
Meow Meow heard
He
this
only
string of
recognized money.
accusations. She
Outside
shook
the
her
house,
head in
police
horror
sirens
and said,
sounded.
I didn't
Hearing
commit any crime.
Zhang Jiasun suddenly
Now we
looked
are
at
pursuing
Ning Shu
the
and
stolen
asked,
goods according
Did you
to
call
the law.
the police?
You can't take
Ning
the
Shu
things in this
sneered.
house away.
Since he did
Also,
something
you are
wrong,
under
he
arrest.
should be punished.
The police said
Jiasun,
to Shui Man,
are you going to
the
exonerate
policeman
your
reached out
brother-in-law?
to take Shui
Zhang
Man's
Jiasun
suitcase.
looked at Ning Shu in
Shui
shock.
Man grabbed the handle
Meow
of the
Meow,
suitcase
how did you
tightly
become
and
like
said,
this?
These
Ning
things
Shu's
are all
face
mine.
was cold.
Why can't
Dad
I take my
said that
things away?
managing a company has
Everything
to be
in this house
decisive
will
to
be
make the
seized.
subordinates
The
obedient.
leading policeman
The
looked
police
at Shui
came in,
Man and said
and
to
Ning
the
Shu
others,
directly asked
lock
them
them
to
up.
take Tan Heyu away.
Tan Heyu was really scared this time.
Put these
Tears
things away
and snot
and
were
wait for
running
the
down
court
his
to
face.
seize them.
Ning
Shu
Shu
shouted
shouted
to
was
Zhang
escorted
Jiasun,
into the police
brother-in-law.
She
I
was
know I
so
was
scared
wrong.
that tears
Please
streamed
save
down
me.
her face.
I don't want to go
However,
to jail.
in the eyes
Ning
of the
Shu
police,
seemed to be
Shui
furious.
Man was now
His
a criminal.
face was cold and he
no
did
matter
not
how
speak.
pitiful she was,
Zhang Jiasun looked
no one would
helpless.
sympathize with her.
Forget it.
Shui Man
should be
was
taught a
locked
lesson.
up in the detention
Tan
center.
Heyu was dragged into
She
the
had
police
to face
car.
criminal detention.
The sirens of the
Shui
police car
Man was
gradually
terrified.
disappeared.
What was she going
But
to
the
do for the
atmosphere in
rest
the
of her
office
life?
was still very
After such a
oppressive.
thing happened,
Ning Shu looked at the female
her
designer.
relationship with Zhang Jiasun
From today
was
onwards,
exposed.
you are fired
Everything
from the
happened too
company.
suddenly.
You will never never
Shui
be hired
Man
again.
was terrified.
The designer
What
bit her
should she
lip.
do?
She
How did the
glanced at
police
Zhang
find Tang
Jiasun
Chenming's
and
house?
turned to leave.
While Ning
Zhang
Shu was
Jiasun
cooking the
sighed
medicinal
and reached
cuisine
out
at
to
home,
touch Ning Shu's head.
Father Miao received
Don't
a
be
call
angry.
from the company's
The most
secretary.
important thing now
He knew that
is
Zhang
to remedy
Jiasun
the
had been taken
situation.
away by the police.
He said to Ning Shu.
Ning Shu grinned at
It's
Zhang
not good
Jiasun.
to make such a big
The
deal
new
out of
design
it.
draft will be
It's
out
bad
soon.
for the company.
Zhang Jiasun's
Ning
pupil
Shu didn't
shrank.
care at all.
He breathed a sigh
Dad,
of
are you
relief
going to
and
deal
said,
with it in private?
That's good. Zhang
The matter
Jiasun
was
is that kind of
resolved.
person.
Zhang
Even
Jiasun
if he
did
moves
not
out
leave
of the Miao
immediately.
family,
He
he
stayed
can
to
still
comfort
do
Ning
well
Shu.
in other places.
Ning Shu narrowed
Ning
his
Shu
eyes and
wanted
thought
Zhang
about
Jiasun
something.
to take the
It was
blame
too
for this crime
coincidental.
and
The
follow him
corporate
for the
spy
rest
could
of
have
his
found
life.
anyone. With a
But he
criminal
just had
record
to
of
find
embezzlement,
Tanhayu,
which
who was
company
not
would
clean.
dare to hire
Zhang
Zhang
Jiasun looked at Ning
who would
Shu's
dare to
thoughtful
hire an
expression
employee
and
who
asked,
drank the company's
"What are you
blood
thinking about?
and stole the company's
Nothing.
flesh?
You can go
Moreover,
back.
corruption
I can
and
still hold
bribery
on.
were only
Ning
the
Shu
first
said.
wave.
Zhang
There were more
Jiasun
things
hugged
waiting
Ning
for
Shu
Zhang
and
Jiasun.
comforted her
Father
softly.
Miao nodded.
Meow meow.
Yes,
managing
we can't
the
let him
company
off
is
so
like
easily.
this.
There
I
are
didn't
all
agree
kinds
to
of
the two of you
unexpected
getting
things.
married.
Meow
This
Meow,
won't
you have a
happen
gentle
now.
temperament.
Ningxiu
It will
served the
definitely
medicinal
be difficult
cuisine
for
to
you
Father
to
Meow.
deal with these things.
Ningxiu nodded and
Don't
said,
force yourself too
"At
much.
that time,
I will
I
be
was blinded
distressed.
by dog shit.
In my heart,
Father
I
Meow
hope you
was
can be
speechless.
happy for the rest of
Father
your life."
Meow didn't even have
Ningxiu
the
said
appetite
faintly,
to eat the
"Let's wait
medicinal
and
cuisine.
see.
When he
If you
heard
are
about
suffering,
dog
just
shit,
tell me."
Ningxiu
I can
didn't
help you
visit
solve
Zhang
anything.
Jiasun. Zhang
Instead,
Jiasun
he
kissed
went to the
Ningxiu's
company
hair.
to take charge of the
Ningxiu had
overall
goosebumps
situation.
all over her body.
The company was in
Zhang
chaos
Jiasun
now.
patted
Ningxiu's
Ningxiu's
shoulder
took over
again,
the position
and then
of general
left.
manager.
Ningxiu
and
looked
began
at
to
Zhang Jiasun's
stabilize
back.
the company.
Why did she
This
feel
time,
that Zhang
without
Jiasun's
Zhang
back
Jiasun's
carried a sense
interference,
of complacency?
he had to take
What
full
if it was
control
really
of
like
the company.
Zhang
Ningxiu,
Jiasun was willing
who
to
working,
sacrifice his
received a call
brother-in-law
from an
in order
unknown
to
number.
give her trouble.
When he picked it up, he heard Zhang Jiasun's voice. "Meow Meow, it's me."
Chapter
I'll make it
451.
short. The
I
design
didn't take
drafts
any
were
bribes,
stolen, so they
You have
had
to
to
help me.
redesign. Zhang
If they
Jiasun's
didn't
voice was
redesign
very
quickly,
tired. The
there was
spring
a slight
clothes
tremble
would be
on
on the
his
market
voice.
soon,
But overall,
and the factory
he
wouldn't
sounded
be able to
relatively
produce
calm.
the goods.
Ningxiu
This
laughed
matter was
silently.
more than just a
Help
little
you.
troublesome.
Meow Meow, are
Ningxiu
you
rubbed
listening
his
to me?
forehead. I don't have much
previous
time to
elements
call.
couldn't be used.
You have to help me.
Ningxiu guessed
Ask
that the
father-in-law
design
to help
drafts
me.
were in the hands
Zhang
of someone
Jiasun
else.
said anxiously.
The designer
A voice
worked
came
overtime
from the
to
other end of the
redesign.
phone,
And Ningxiu
Time's up.
basically didn't sleep
Stop
at
calling
night
to review
Meow
the
Meow,
design
I
drafts.
love you.
Ningxiu wasn't
Zhang
a
Jiasun
professional
was hung
designer
up
after
before
all.
he could finish his
If
words.
he gave too many opinions,
Ningxiu stared at the
he would
phone and
interfere
shrugged
too
his
much with the
shoulders.
designer. Ningxiu sometimes proposed a concept
He said,
or
"I love
element
you,"
for the designer
and wanted
to
to
use.
help you.
After
How cunning.
Ningxiu drank a cup
She was
of coffee,
afraid that Zhang
he rubbed
Jiasun
his
didn't
dark
know that
eyes
Shueman
and
Man had
received
been
a call
arrested.
from the head of
If
the
he knew,
detective agency.
he wouldn't be so
When he
confident
arrived
in
at the
asking
coffee
her
shop,
to save her.
Ningxiu
She just
saw the
didn't know
coffee
how Zhang
and felt a
Jiasun,
little thirsty,
who had fallen
so
from
he
the
gulped
position
down a
of
cup
general
of coffee
manager.
first. Felt now.
Head,
From
gulp.
heaven to hell.
What did you get this
and
time?
now he might even face the
Ningxiu asked.
disaster of being
The head
imprisoned.
pushed the laptop
Could he
in
bear
front
it?
of Ningxiu
He was about to
and
succeed,
clicked on the
but he
enter
missed
key.
it.
How
Ningxiu
painful
looked at
and
the
vexing
screen
it must be,
and saw two
now that
white
she was
bodies
busy
rolling
with the
together.
company's affairs.
Zhang Jiasun's
How could she have
expression
time
was
to
happy
save
and
Zhang
evil.
Jiasun?
While
Even if
Shueman
Zhang
Man's face
Jiasun
was full of
quibbled,
enjoyment,
there was
it was
irrefutable
like two
evidence.
snakes entangled
He couldn't
together,
run away,
making
Ningxiu
Ningxiu
fired
feel
many
disgusted.
people in the finance
Looking at the
department.
time of the video,
The people in the
it was
finance
indeed that
department
afternoon.
were responsible
In
for
the
checking
afternoon,
and filling
he
in
was
the
with
loopholes.
Shueman Man.
The Meow
But in
family
the
was the
evening,
owner of the
he told
company,
her that he wanted
but
to
they
have
were
a
all
baby.
on Zhang Jiasun's
Hee.
side.
Ningxiu looked
After
at the
firing
video
these
indifferently.
people,
And
Ningxiu
after
put
a
the
while,
people he
a
found in the
shameful sound
finance
was heard.
department.
The coffee
He also
shop was
fired many
relatively
people
quiet,
who were above the
and the
position
sudden
of
shameful
supervisor.
sound made everyone
These
in the
people were
coffee
all
shop
related
look
to
at
Zhang
Ningxiu.
Jiasun.
There was a
Ningxiu immediately
relationship
closed
of
the
interest.
laptop.
In
With
fact,
this victory
many
was
people
basically
thought
in his
that the Meow
hands.
family would
The
be
head
Zhang
pulled out the
Jiasun's in the
USB
future.
from the laptop.
The Meow family
handed
didn't
it to
have a son
Ningxiu,
to inherit
saying,
the company.
"This is what you wanted."
And their only daughter
Ningxiu
married
put
Zhang
away the
Jiasun.
USB,
This
nodded
company
and said,
should naturally
"And
be
okay."
inherited by Zhang
Ningxiu
Jiasun.
made several
When
copies
choosing
of the
between the
USB
Meow
flash
family
drive's
and Zhang
contents,
Jiasun, and placed
they
it in the
chose
bank
Zhang
safe.
Jiasun.
After a
fought for the
period of
merit of
accumulation,
supporting the emperor.
Ningxiu found
seemed
that he
that
had
Zhang
more and more
Jiasun chose
evidence
Meow
in his
Meow
hands
Meow
as his
He was
target
like a
after
little
careful
squirrel,
consideration.
accumulating
It wasn't
pine
enough
cones
to
bit
just
by
be a
bit.
rich young lady.
However,
it
now
had to
is
be
not
a
the
rich
time to
young
ask
lady
for
who
a
had the right
divorce.
to inherit.
It was better to act up together.
Ningxiu returned to the factory. As soon as he entered the office, he heard
Chapter
wailing and
462.
howling. He walked
Everyone
in
wanted
and
to
saw Zhang
succeed.
Jiasun's
And
mother
if Zhang
sitting on the
Jiasun
ground.
could treat Meow
She
Meow
slapped
Meow
the ground and
sincerely,
shouted,
"It might
"Damn
be a
it.
happy marriage."
How can there be
But
such a
Zhang
ruthless
Jiasun
wife?
used Meow Meow
She
Meow
even sent
and
her
even hurt her,
brother-in-law to the
taking
police
everything
station
away from her.
Many workers
Why did
gathered
Zhang
around
Jiasun
Zhang
feel
Jiasun's
wronged
mother
and feel that he
and
had no
whispered to
dignity
each other
after hurting
Not
someone
only
else?
was Zhang Jiasun's
He was the
mother
one
there,
who made the
but
decision
Zhang
to marry
Jiasun's
Meow
sister,
Meow Meow.
Zhang Wenlan,
But
was
Zhang
also
Jiasun
there.
acted as if
Zhang
the Meow
Wenlan
family
was
forced
crying,
him to give up
and
his
Zhang
dignity
Jiasun's
and
father
marry
was sitting
Meow
on
Meow
a chair
Meow.
with a pale
Zhang
face.
Jiasun destroyed
Seeing
Meow
Ningxiu
Meow Meow's
coming
happy
over,
life for that
Zhang
little bit of
Jiasun's
dignity
mother immediately
and that
rushed
little bit
over
of
to
male
Ningxiu.
chauvinism.
Meow Meow Meow.
Miao, who had nothing,
you black-hearted
naturally
man.
didn't have
Why did
that
you put your
suffocating
brother-in-law
aura.
in jail?
No one said that he was a
Sister-in-law,
soft-rice
I beg
king
you,
anymore.
let you come back.
After Zhang Jiasun
Zhang Wenlan
succeeded,
knelt down
he
in
used
front of
strong
Ning
means
Shu
to wash away
He
his
has 1,000
humiliating
faults,
past.
but he is
This
also
kind
my
of person
husband.
was crazy.
If he goes to
Zhang
jail,
Jiasun
how
called
can we
Ning
live?
Shu to help him.
Daughter-in-law,
But Ning
this
Shu
is a
forgot
family
about
matter.
it in a blink of
How
an
can
eye.
you make a scene
He
like
was
this?
busy with work
If
every
there is
day
a problem,
and would
go
only
home and
talk
solve
about
it
it after he
Don't
had
wash
complete
dirty
control
linen
of
in
the company.
public.
But
You have
Zhang
lost the
Jiasun
face of the
basically
Zhang
called Ning
family.
Shu every day to
Zhang
ask him to
Jiasun's
think of a
father's
way.
face was not
In
good.
the beginning,
His
he could
honest
still
and mellow
talk to
face
Ning
was
Shu
fierce,
warmly.
and his
But after
aura
a
was
long
similar
time,
to Zhang Jiasun's.
Ning Shu's attitude
He had
was
the
always
absolute
perfunctory,
majesty of the
and
head of
Zhang
the family.
Jiasun's tone became
As soon
very
as Ning
anxious
Shu walked
and
in,
impatient.
he
Zhang
welcomed the storm
Jiasun
of Zhang
directly
family
asked
members.
Ning Shu to save him.
Ning Shu's face
but Ning
did not
Shu was
change.
still warm.
He first
After
drove
a few
the onlooking
days,
workers
Zhang
to work,
Jiasun's tone
closed the
became
office
humble,
door,
and he
kept
kept
saying,
indifferently,
"Meow,
"What
meow.
are you doing?
I love you. You have to save
Sister-in-law,
me.
I beg you."
Zhang Jiasun
Don't put
knew
my
that the
child's
only
father in
person who
jail.
could save him now
Without
was
my
the Miao
child's
family.
father, and
How
Miao
can we
Miao
live?
Miao's father,
Zhang Wenlong,
who had a
cried
wide
and begged
network,
Ningxu,
and he was relying
as if the
on
sky
Miao
was
Miao
falling
Miao's
down.
love for him.
Ningxu
calmly
calmly
took
took
a
a
sip
sip
of
of
coffee.
coffee. Zhang
Can't
Jiasun
live?
now.
There
And
was
he
no
had to
such a
rely on
lazy
Miao
man
Miao
who did
Miao's
not
love.
support his family.
Ningxu felt that it
Can't
was
live
ironic.
without a man.
A man like
Can't live
Zhang
without a
Jiasun
man.
was really a woman's
This was a woman's
misfortune.
sorrow.
And
no
she
matter
had to
how
run
much
as far
of a
away as
bastard the man
possible
was,
from such a man.
she can't live without him.
Ningxu answered with
She
his
did
mouth.
not have the confidence
There was still
and
more
courage
than a
to
month
live for
before
herself.
Zhang Jiasun's
Ningxu
trial.
looked at the
In this
pitiful Zhang
month,
Wenlan.
the police
A
station
pitiful
had to
person
collect
must
all
have a
kinds of
hateful
evidence
side.
and appeal.
Zhang
Once
Wenlan
it
had
went to
already
court,
lowered herself
Zhang
to the
Jiasun's
ground.
crime would be
There was
confirmed.
always so much
There would
malice
be an
towards women
indelible
in this
stain in
world.
his file.
Meow,
And
meow,
he might
meow.
even go to
If
jail.
you don't let your brother-in-law
Therefore,
out,
Zhang
I will not
Jiasun
let
wanted
you off.
Ningxu to get
Zhang
him out of
Jiasun's
here
mother
before
gritted
the
her
court
teeth
session
and said to
started.
Ningxu,
He wanted to
"You are
minimize the
simply
problem as
disgraceful.
much as possible.
How can you do such
if
a
I can
thing
kill you
and send
I
your own
definitely
family
won't
member
let you
to
live.
jail?
Let you out.
Do you know what Tan
How
He
is that
did?
possible?
He stole the
Ningxu
company's
laughed
design
coldly
and sold it for
Zhang
money.
Jiasun wanted
He
to
caused
call
the company
Ningxu
to lose
to
at
go to
least
the
$1
police
million
station
yuan.
to watch over him.
Ningxu said
There
calmly.
were some things he
Zhang
wanted to say
Jiasun's
to
father
Ningxu,
said,
but there
"Even
was a
if that is
time
the
limit to
case,
the phone call.
you should tell your
So he
family
couldn't
that you
explain
shouldn't
it
do
clearly.
this."
Old
Besides,
Zhang's family will
some
not
things
have
were
such a
completely
scandal.
different over the
He
phone
did not
than
even
in
care
person.
about your husband.
Zhang Jiasun wanted to
Ningxu
rely on
smirked
Miao
and
Miao
said,
Miao's love for
Jiasun
him to
also
soften
agreed
her
to this
heart
matter.
when she saw him
If
in
there is
such a
anything,
sorry state.
go and find
Ningxu
Jiasun.
just laughed
Jiasun
twice
would not
and
do
walked
this.
to the window.
It must be because you insisted on doing this.
He
Zhang
saw
Jiasun's mother
Jiasun's
pointed
family
at
members
Ningxu,
making a scene
her
at the
finger
company's
almost poked
entrance.
Ningxu's nose.
Zhang Jiasun's mother
Get out,
was
I
used
need
to
to
making
work.
a scene.
If there is
She
anything,
sat at the door
we
and
can talk
cried.
about it at night.
However, this time,
Ningxu said
she
coldly.
cried more sadly
Zhang
than when
Jiasun's
Tan He
mother
was
refused
caught.
to leave.
Zhang Jiasun
and
was her
insisted
flesh
that
and
Ningxu
blood.
get her
Not
son-in-law
only
out.
Zhang Jiasun's mother
Ningxu was
came,
very
but
impatient,
the whole family
and
also
directly
came.
asked the security
Zhang
to get
Xiaomei
her
and her
out.
brother.
Zhang
Zhang
Jiasun's
Wenlan
mother
was holding
cried
her
and
daughter
shouted
in
at
her
everyone
arms.
at the gate of the
Zhang
factory.
Wenlan was crying
She
silently,
muttered about her
hugging
heartless
her
daughter-in-law
daughter-in-law
and
and
so
crying.
on. To be
Zhang
honest,
Wenlan knelt at
Ningxu
the gate
didn't
and
like
cried
Zhang
and
Wenlan
cried.
very much.
It was like this
She was
for a
always
few
so
days.
weak and always cried in front of the child.
Ningxu
She
knew
didn't
that
want to
Zhang
leave any
Jiasun's
shadow
mother
on the child.
wanted to use
She
public
always
opinion
made herself
to make her
look so
compromise.
miserable.
However,
Just looking at her was
Ningxu did not
unbearable.
care at all.
Zhang
The
Jiasun's
employees
mother's
of this
favorite thing
factory
to do
relied
was to
on the
put a
Miao
bucket of
family
shit
for a
on
living.
Ningxu's head.
Would they offend
She
their own
sat on the
boss for
ground,
someone they did
slapped
not
the
know?
ground, and wailed
Zhang
loudly.
Jiasun had
Her
not shown up
daughter-in-law
since
was
the
a
incident.
black-hearted person.
He only called
She
Ningxu
sent her husband and
and said that
brother-in-law
he would
to the police
apologize on
station
behalf of his
and
mother.
locked all the men
His mother
in her
was just
husband's
too
family
worried
in the
about his
police
brother-in-law.
station.
There
And
were
he would
people
do his
coming
best to persuade
and going
his
at the
mother.
company's entrance.
However, Zhang
They were all
Jiasun's mother
watching
was
the Zhang
punctual
family,
like the workers at the gate of
especially
the
when they
factory
heard
and
Zhang
cried.
Jiasun's mother
Compared to the
scolding the
unreasonable
company's
Zhang
general
Jiasun's
manager.
mother,
They were
Zhang
all very
Wenlan took the
gossipy.
weak route.
Ningxu
She
asked
knelt
his
on the
secretary
ground
to
and
call
cried
the family
silently.
in.
Sometimes,
Zhang Jiasun's
she
mother's
even brought
method
her
was
daughter
hurting
to kneel
others
with
and
her.
herself.
Ningxu
To
did
be
not know
honest,
whether
this
to
kind
laugh
of
or
harm
cry.
didn't hurt Ningxu
However,
much.
he did not care
However,
and did not ask.
Ningxu had an
If
idea
they wanted
in his
to make
mind.
a scene,
The
then
family
let them.
was sent to the living
Moreover,
room.
Zhang
Ningxu
Jiasun's
walked in
attitude
and
towards
saw
this
Zhang
matter was
Jiasun's
laissez-faire.
mother wiping her
With
nose,
Zhang
then
Jiasun's
flinging
ability,
her snot on the
how
wall.
could he not be able
She
to
then
persuade
wiped her
his
hands
mother?
on her shoes.
How could he not have the
Ningxu was
ability to
speechless.
get Tan Hu out?
Seeing Ningxu walk
Zhang
in,
Jiasun
the Zhang
deliberately
family
let
his
his faces
mother
all
and
turn
sister
green.
embarrass her in
Even
front
Zhang
of the
Xiaomei knew
employees
the seriousness
and
of
damage
this
her
matter.
dignity.
Without
Ningxu
her brother,
only sneered
she wouldn't
and
have the
ignored
money
these
to buy
people.
good things.
The more he
There were
ignored
too
them,
many
the
good
higher
things
they
in
jumped.
the city, but they also required a lot of money. Zhang Xiaomei said to Ningxu, Sister
Chapter
Miao,
452.
how did my brother get
However,
taken
after
away?
several revisions,
Ningxu
the
said
design
calmly.
was finally ready.
He embezzled the company's
factory
money
could finally
and was
produce
reported.
spring clothing.
Embezzled the
Miao
company's
Ying's
money.
father also
You
found
and
out
Jiasun
about
are
what
married,
happened to Zhang
so your
Jiasun's
family.
mother.
This
As
company
soon
is
as
also
Ningxu
considered
returned home,
Jiasun's.
Miao
How can
Ying's father
taking
said
money
to
from
Ningxu
your
with
own
heartache
family be
Why
considered
didn't you tell us
embezzlement?
about this?
Zhang
This
Jiasun's
family is a
father said
bastard.
coldly.
If I had known embezzlement at all, I would never have married them. Now is not the time to be so angry that she was trembling. The most important thing now is to get Jason out. His face turned purple with anger. Who was wailing and blaming felt that something was wrong when he saw father's attitude was obviously much better. He quickly tried to calm him down. Was locked up. Seeing that Zhang Jason's father condescendingly asked her to let him go, Ningxu quickly shouted to his attitude was much more amiable. Mom, go and find a needle. In Zhang Jason's father's mother also noticed that something was wrong with Miao Ying's father in this family. She found a needle and handed it to Ningxu. It was also directly inserted the needle into Miao Ying's father's hand. When he pulled out the needle, blood splashed out. Ningxu didn't care what these people were thinking. Blood pressure stopped rising. I really can't do anything about this. Miao Ying's mother was shocked. Naturally, old man, I want him to be released. Miao Ying's father felt very dizzy. A lot of money. He lay on the sofa and gasped for breath. I don't know how much it will cost. I have no idea. Mother took a wet towel and wiped Miao Ying's father's face. Zhang
eyes were
Jiasan's
watery.
mother said directly
Ning
to
Shu furrowed
Ning Shu.
her brows tightly.
Hearing Zhang
Recently,
Jiasan's mother say
she had been
this,
busy with
the other
design
Zhang
drafts,
family members
which
didn't
made
say
Ning
anything.
Shu feel mentally
Obviously,
and physically
they all
exhausted.
thought the same.
It was
Ning
very
Shu
late
narrowed
when they
her
got
eyes.
home. She
Miao
always
Ying's
felt
mother
that
took
Zhang
care of
Jiasan's
Miao
mother
Ying's
was
father's
shrewish
diet.
and uneducated.
After a while,
she said
Miao
whatever
Ying's
she
father
wanted.
recovered.
However,
He said sadly,
Zhang Jiasan's
"I'm old
mother's
and
role
useless.
was to test other people's
Dad,
bottom
have you
line
eaten the
and
medicinal
let Zhang
diet I
Jiasan's
told you to
father,
eat?"
who was
Ning
the
Shu
head of the
asked.
family,
Yes,
know
I've
what to
been
do.
watching her eat
Just
every
like
day.
now.
Miao
Zhang
Ying's mother
Jiasan's
said
mother
immediately.
directly said that the
Ning
Miao
Shu narrowed
family
his
should
eyes
pay
and
to get
said,
Jiasan out.
"Dad, trust me.
Her words were
I can
direct
handle
and
it.
unacceptable.
Don't worry."
But Zhang
Miao
Jiasan's
Ying's
father
father
couldn't
couldn't
say
say
it
it
out
with
loud.
relief.
This
Seeing
family
how strong
already
you
had
are,
a fixed way
I
of
won't
living,
have any regrets
and
even if
everyone
I die
consciously
now.
maintained this
Ning
way of
Shu.
living.
That Ning Shu
Daughter-in-law
slowly massaged
Jiasan is
Ning
still
Shu's
suffering
father
in the
while
prison.
thinking about something.
Let's get him out
Miao's
first.
father looked at
Nothing
Ning
else
Shu,
is more important
wanting
than
to say
him.
something, but
Seeing that
hesitated.
Ning Shu didn't say
"Dad,
anything,
if you have something to
Zhang
say, just
Jiasan's
say
father
it."
sighed and said.
Miao Miao's
When
father
Jiasan is
hesitated for a
released,
moment before
you guys
he said,
should live a good life.
"Miao Miao, tell me,
If the first child's
do you
surname
love
is
Zhang
Miao
Jiasan
so
then
much
so be
that
it.
you only want Zhang
After all,
Jiasan for the
he is a
rest of your
child of the
life?"
Zhang family
Ning
and the
Shu
Miao
smiled.
family.
No one
Zhang
can't live
Jiasan's
without
father
someone.
was now
Miao
negotiating
Ying's
with
father
Ning Shu.
looked a little better. He said to Ning Shu, "It's late. Go to sleep. Dad is fine." Ning Shu
Chapter
nodded and said to
463.
Mr. Miao. Zhang Jiasan's
"Dad,
father
you
said
must
that
take
the
good
first
care of
child
yourself.
should be named Miao.
I can live without
Ning Shu
Zhang
expressed
Jiasan,
that she
but I
didn't want
can't
Zhang
live without
Jiasan
you."
anymore. Miao
And she
Ying's
still
father
wanted to
smiled
have a
and
child
patted
with
Ning
Zhang
Shu's back.
Jiasan?
Why
My
did the
precious
Zhang
daughter.
family feel that
Ning
they
Shu
had to
took a
have
shower
Zhang
and
Jiasan
called Zhang
without
Jiasan
the
while
halo
lying
that
on
the
the
Miao
bed?
family gave Zhang Jiasan? Zhang
The first
Jiasan
thing
was
he said
worthless.
was, "Zhang
He didn't
Jiasan,
have
let's
money,
get a divorce."
and his character wasn't
Miao
good.
Miao, what's wrong?
The Zhang family
Zhang
felt that they
Jiasan's
should
voice
be
was
faithful
trembling,
to Zhang Jiasan,
as if he was forcibly
no matter what he
suppressing
was
it,
like, giving
Ning
people
Shu
a
found it
feeling of shock
hilarious.
and sadness.
She felt like she
Ning
had
Shu
returned to
crossed his
ancient
legs on the
times,
bed
and
where
picked
women
his
had to
earwax
follow
with
the
an
3
earpick.
obediences
He said
and 4
indifferently,
virtues.
"I
Even
just
though
found out
times
that
were
your
changing,
parents don't like me
some
very
ideas
much.
were still deeply
Your mother
rooted.
comes to the
In some
factory every
places,
day,
women
and
couldn't
couldn't
even
eat
eat
at the
every
table.
day.
No matter
Don't say
when
that
there were
I'm your
always
family.
thick shackles
If
on
your
women.
mother really treated
Women
me as her
nowadays
family,
might not live
would
as
she
happily
curse me?
as those women
She
in
said that I'm
ancient times.
black-hearted and should
Women
be struck
nowadays
by
had to
lightning.
take care of their
She's
family
my enemy
and work to give
I just
birth
found
and
out
raise
that
children.
marriage is a matter
Weren't
between
women
two
supposed to
families.
hold up half the sky?
My dad was so
Now,
angry that
I'll
he
let you
almost
hold
had
up
half
half
blood
the sky.
pressure. When
Ning
Zhang
Shu said
Jiasan's mother
directly,
heard that the
"So let's
child's
get a
surname was
divorce."
Miao, her
Dad,
face
is Dad
turned
okay?
ugly.
Her
Zhang
lips
Jiasan
moved,
asked
but
quickly.
she didn't say anything.
Has he been sent to
She
the
obviously
hospital?
didn't dare to
Ning Shu
challenge
rolled
Zhang
his eyes.
Jiasan's
father's authority as the head of the
Fortunately,
family.
Dad survived.
The Zhang family
Zhang
looked at
Jiasan
Ning
sighed
Shu
and said repeatedly,
obviously waiting for
"It's
Ning
good that
Shu's
he's
answer.
okay."
Ning
Let's
Shu
get
was
a
about to
divorce,
explode.
Zhang Jiasan.
What was this?
I'm serious.
Spending money
Ning
to
Shu
get
said
Zhang
coldly.
Jiasan out.
Zhang
Then
Jiasan
carrying
quickly
him
said,
for 10 months.
"Meow meow, don't
enduring
be
the
like
pain
this.
of labor.
Please,
and giving
I
birth
apologize
to a
to
child
you
with
on
the
behalf
surname
of my
Miao?
parents.
Was this a great
They're
gift?
just too worried
What
about
the fuck?
brother-in-law."
Ning Shu took
And
a
I
deep
know.
breath and said,
That's why I can see
"Okay,
that your mother
but the company
doesn't
have
very
much money.
Okay,
So you'll have to
I'm
fork out
hanging
some
up.
money.
I'm going to
We don't
sleep."
have money." Ning Shu
Zhang
turned off the
Jiasan's
phone.
mother said firmly.
The next day,
Ning
when
Shu
Ning
said
Shu went to the
indifferently,
factory,
"Then there's no
Zhang
other way,
Jiasan's mother and
because
elder
the design
sister were
drafts
nowhere
were
to be
stolen.
seen. The
They
factory
were used
can't
to wailing
operate,
like at a
but
funeral.
we still have to pay
This
the
kind of
workers.
silence
The
made
company
Ning Shu a
doesn't have
little
much money
uncomfortable.
left.
See,
If you want to
as
save
soon as she
Jiasan,
said divorce,
this money isn't
Zhang
enough.
Jiasan immediately
I also want to
retracted
save
his
him,
clause.
but the
When
conditions
Zhang
don't
Jiasan's
allow
ability,
it.
he
Ning
must
Shu
have a
spread
way
out
to
his
appease
his
his
parents
pride.
and elder
If
sister.
it doesn't work,
But he
let
didn't take
Jiasan
any
go to
action.
jail for a few
Walking
years.
into the office,
Zhang Jiasan's
Ning Shu
mother
was hugged
immediately
by a person
frowned
who
and
smelled
pointed at
strongly
Ning
of
Shu,
smoke.
scolding.
Ning Shu
"You
wanted to
dark-eyed
push
woman,
Zhang Jiasan away.
how can you talk about
but
your
Zhang
husband
Jiasan
like
hugged
that?
him even
How
tighter
can
and
Jiasan
shouted
go to
hoarsely.
jail?"
Meow meow.
Ning Shu looked at Zhang
Ning Shu
Jiasan's
pushed
mother.
Zhang Jiasan away.
She was thinner than
Zhang
before.
Jiasan's expression
Her
was a
cheekbones
little
were high.
stunned. Her
He
eyes were
seemed to have not slept all
and
night.
her hair was more
His
white
eyes
than
were
before.
bloodshot. Even though she was
coming
talking
out,
to Ningxu
and
angrily,
his shirt was very
he
wrinkled.
could still feel that she
Meow,
was
meow,
weak
don't
and
be
afraid.
stubborn, okay?
Zhang Jiasan's mother's expression
expression
was very
a
painful.
person who bared her teeth
How can
and
you deny
brandished
the
her
feelings
claws
between us?
Ningxu ignored
Feelings
the
my
clamoring
ass.
Zhang Jiasan's
Ningxu
mother.
really wanted to
Zhang
spit on
Jiasan's
Zhang
mother
Jiasan's
was a
face.
woman, but
Ningxu
she absolutely
looked at Zhang
supported
Jiasan
male
with a very
chauvinism.
indifferent
She
expression
even
and
asked her
said
daughter
lightly,
and daughter-in-law to
Jiasan,
prioritize men.
Can you wait until I finish my work before saying these things?
Do you
In
know that I'm
particular,
very tired?
She asked Ningxu,
Your family
her
makes me
daughter-in-law,
even more tired.
to prioritize her son.
Let's calm down.
It would be even
Ningxu
better if she
ignored
could be
Zhang
humble.
Jiasan's painful
Ningxu
expression.
was left speechless
With
by
Zhang
this
Jiasan
strange
here.
idea.
Ningxu
Zhang
was too
Jiasan's
lazy
mother
to go to
actually
work,
didn't have much
so he
say in the
directly
family.
turned and left.
All the decisions
Zhang
were in the
Jiasan caught
hands
up
of
with Zhang
Ningxu
Jiasan's
and grabbed
father.
Ningxu's arm.
Growing up in such an
Meow, meow,
environment,
don't do this to
Zhang
me.
Jiasan
You
was a
said
male
that you wanted a
chauvinist.
divorce
Even
because you
though
were
Meow
angry,
Meow
right?
treated Zhang Jiasan very well and didn't look
Ningxu
down on him
shook
because
off
of his
Zhang
family
Jiasan's
background.
I
Zhang
said, let's
Jiasan
calm
felt
down.
that his pride was
You're annoying
insulted
me.
and denied
Do you know that I
everything
can't bear
Meow
your
Meow
mother
Meow
anymore?
had.
Are you going to
Daughter-in-law,
force me now?
Our family really
Zhang
doesn't have
Jiasan's
money.
eyes flashed with
At
a gloomy
most,
look.
we can only
He pursed
take out
his lips and
100,000 yuan.
Okay, meow
Zhang
meow, don't
Jiasan's
be
father
angry.
said.
Zhang
100,000
Jiasan took a
yuan.
deep breath and said,
It seemed that
I'll
Zhang
take you
Jiasan
back.
had really embezzled a
Ning Shu
lot
shook
of
his
money
head
from the Zhang
and
family.
drove to the bank to
Moreover,
take out the things in
Ning
the
Shu
safe.
believed that
These things
100,000
should be known to
yuan
Meow
was
Meow's
definitely
father,
not Zhang
so that they
Jiasan's
could deal
father's
with
bottom
Zhang
line.
Jiasan together.
Ning Shu shook
When
her
Ning
head
Shu
and said,
returned home,
how can
and was about to
100,000
pour
yuan be
water in the
enough?
kitchen,
Jiasan
he
embezzled
found
a
Mrs.
huge
Ping
sum of
putting
7
something
to 8
into the
million
medicine
yuan.
soup.
This matter
What are you
isn't so
doing?
easy to solve.
Ning Shu reached
If we
out
can
and
fix
grabbed
these
Mrs.
loopholes,
Ping's arm to
this
pull
matter
her
will
away,
definitely be left
preventing her
unsettled.
from destroying the
A few
evidence
million?
by breaking
How
the
can
pot.
our family have
Mrs.
a few
Ping
million
was
yuan?
startled by Ning Shu.
Sister Meow,
Obviously,
your family is so
she
rich.
did not expect
Can't you
Ning
take
Shu
out
to
this
come
much
back
money?
so suddenly.
When Zhang
She
Xiaomei
pulled
heard
Ning
that it
Shu's
was a few
hand
million
and tried
yuan,
to break free.
she almost
Ning
jumped
Shu
up.
directly
Even
pulled
if they
Mrs.
sold
Ping into the
themselves,
living room.
they wouldn't be able to
Mrs.
gather
Ping's
that
face
much
was
money.
pale.
Dad,
Miss, what are you
why
doing?
don't we let brother?
Let me go.
Before
What's
Zhang
going
Xiaomei
on?
could finish her
Mrs.
sentence,
Miao came downstairs.
Zhang Jiasan's
Ning
father's
Shu
face
said with a cold
immediately
face,
turned serious.
Mom, call the police.
That's your brother.
Mrs.
No
Ping
matter
put
what,
poison in
we
the
have to
medicine
save
soup.
your brother.
Madam, I
Obviously,
didn't.
Mrs.
Zhang Xiaomei
Xiaomei
shook
meant
her
to
head
let her brother
quickly.
go to jail
Mrs.
for
Miao
a few
was
years
shocked.
in exchange
How
for
is
a
that
few
possible?
million yuan.
Mrs. Ping
Actually,
has
it
been
was
in the
quite
Miao
worth
family
it.
for years.
Not many people
Ning
could earn
Shu
7
asked
to
the
8
other two
million
servants
yuan
to
in a
hold
few
Mrs.
years.
Ping.
It was
And
close
then
to
went to
10
the
million
kitchen
yuan
to get the pot.
Ning Shu
He
listened
said to
silently
Mrs.
at the
Miao,
side.
I want to
Zhang
take this to
Jiasan's
the
father
hospital for
Ning
testing.
Shu said firmly,
Don't let her go until
no
I
matter
come
what,
back.
we have to save him. How about this? In the future, if a boy takes your surname, your first child will
Chapter
also take your
453.
surname.
Ning
And 2
Shu blamed
children will
himself.
take the surname Miao.
He had been busy with the
Asiba,
design drafts
from the sound
and
of it,
hadn't paid
they
attention
were going to
to
have
Mr.
more
Miao's
than 2
health.
children.
In addition,
If 2 of them took
Tan
the
He
surname
had
Miao,
stolen the design
then
drafts,
one of them would take
which
the
made
surname
Ning Shu
Zhang.
even more busy.
Damn,
Ning
Ning
Shu
Shu arrived
arrived
at
at
the
the
hospital and
Ning
handed
Shu
the
felt
medicine
that it was
to the
simply
laboratory
inconceivable
to see if
use
it was
this
the kind of
poisonous.
thing to negotiate.
Ning Shu sat on a
Without
chair in
Zhang
the
Jiasan,
corridor of the
they could
hospital
also have children
and waited for the
they
test
could go
results.
to the sperm bank
The
to
person
choose
who
the
put
best
something
sperm.
in Mr. Miao's
the children
medicine
they gave birth
was
to would
obviously
definitely
targeting
belong
Mr.
to them.
Miao.
Why would
Ning
they
Shu
need
took
such
a
a
deep
gift from
breath
you?
and thought
Ning
slowly.
Shu grinned and said,
If something happened to
about
Mr.
this?
Miao's
Don't we
father,
still have a
who
house
would
at
benefit?
home?
Sell
Zhang
this house,
Jiasan would benefit
and I will
both
give
in
you
the
the
short
rest of the
term
money
and the long term.
How about that?
Mr. Miao's
Ning Shu
father
meant
had
to
been
sell
checking
the
the
house that
accounts
Miao Miao's
recently.
father bought for
If
Miao
something
Miao
happened
and
to
Zhang
Mr. Miao's
Jiasan,
father, the audit would be left unsettled. At this
This won't
time,
do.
the company
Zhang
would have to
Jiasan's
rely
father
on
directly
Zhang Jiasan.
objected.
It was
A house
similar
was
to
the
plot
foundation of a
development.
family.
Mr.
Even
Miao's
if they
father's
sold
death
everything
in
they
the
had,
plot must
they
have
wouldn't
something
be
to
able
do
to
with
buy a
Zhang
house.
Jiasan.
Wasn't
The
this
death
telling
of the Miao
others that
family
this
was
family
Zhang
couldn't
Jiasan's
survive?
masterpiece.
Although Zhang
What a cruel
Jiasan's
and
father
vicious
was from the
wolf.
countryside,
The test results
he was
came
still
out.
very clear about
It wasn't
some things.
poison.
It
But
wasn't
something
easy
called
to own a house in
diclofenac.
the city.
It was an
Ning Shu said
anti-fever,
faintly,
analgesic,
but
and
we need money
anti-inflammatory
now.
drug.
When we have more
However,
money, we will buy a new
long-term
house.
use would inhibit the
Whether you
dilation
save
of
them
blood
or not,
vessels
it's up
and
to
the
you.
drainage of sodium,
Zhang Jiasan's father
which would
frowned
cause
and
blood
smoked.
pressure to rise.
The whole living room
Mr.
was
Miao's
filled with
father
smoke,
had a high
and
constitution,
the smell of smoke was
if he ate
uncomfortable.
this kind of thing,
In the end,
especially
Zhang
with the high
Jiasan's
blood
father made the
viscosity,
decision to
his
buy a
blood
house.
flow would accelerate,
Ning Shu
and his
smiled
blood
faintly.
pressure would rise.
The house soon had
it
a
would
buyer,
be easy for him
but the price
to
was
have
very
a cerebral
low.
hemorrhage
The
or
original
stroke,
2 million
and they
plus
couldn't find
decorations
anything.
and furniture.
No wonder
was
Mr. Miao's
directly
father was
suppressed
so
to 1
strange
million.
that day.
1 million
Ning Shu
was
pursed
still a
his
long
lips.
way from 7
How
to
could there
8
be
million?
such a vicious
But
person in the
Zhang Jia's
world?
father still
Ning
decided
Shu
to
asked the
sell
doctor
it.
to write a
The
list.
rest of the money
When
would
he
be
returned
paid by
home,
Ning Shu.
Mr. Miao
She was
and
the
Mrs.
one who
Miao
said
were
that
waiting
she would
for
pay
him.
for the rest
Ning
of the
Shu
money.
told them the test
house was
results.
quickly sold.
Why did you do
but it
this?
returned to Ning Shu.
Mrs. Miao
This
pointed
time,
at Mrs. Ping.
only Miao
How
Miao's
can you
name
be
was
so
on the
vicious
property
and kill
certificate.
people?
And
And
Zhang
Zhang
Ying's
Jiasan's
father's
name
touched
was
his
no
chest
longer
with
there.
a look of
This
lingering
house was
fear.
no longer
He
the
looked
joint
at Aunt
property
Ping
of
sharply
Zhang
and
Jiasan.
sneered.
And
You Miao
raised
Miao
such a
after
thing.
their marriage.
Aunt Ping,
The mansion
I
was
sponsored
sealed,
your son's
and he
college
didn't have a
tuition.
share in this house.
Is this how you repay
the
me?
things that he had worked
Mrs.
hard
Ping's
for the
face
past
was
2
pale
years
as
were
she
gone.
bit her lips
Zhang
without saying a
Jiasun had
word.
nothing now,
Ning Shu
and he
faintly
had to
said,
face the disaster
"There's
of
nothing
being
to say to
imprisoned."
such a heartless
Ning Shu
person.
put away the
Call
property
the police
certificate and
and let
smiled
them
faintly.
interrogate her."
When Aunt Ping heard what Ning Shu said, her body trembled. "I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose." Chapter 464. I didn't do it on purpose. Since the house had been sold, she kept apologizing. The Zhang
but
family
didn't say why
naturally
she had
couldn't
done
stay
it.
in the house.
Ning Shu directly
Zhang
called the
Jiasun's
police.
mother looked at the nice
After a while,
furniture
the
in the
police
house
came
and
Ning
wanted
Shu
to move
filed the
them
case,
away,
and
Aunt Ping
Zhang
was arrested.
Jiasun's father
Even at
scolded
this
her
time,
directly.
Aunt Ping
These things
still
already
refused to
belonged
give
to
in.
someone else.
After what happened
Besides,
to Auntie Ping,
where would they be placed
Mother
if they
Miao
were
saw
moved
that
away?
the other servants
Zhang
were
Jiasun's
suspicious
mother's
and vigilant.
eyes were red.
She
Her
didn't
face
let them
was
touch the
trembling from
kitchen
the pain.
anymore. These
Mother
things were
Miao
all her
even did
sons.
the grocery
The
shopping
Zhang
herself.
family rented an ordinary house in a small district.
Ning Shu
They would
handed
only
the
return
evidence
to
he
the
took from the bank
countryside
to Mr.
after
Miao
Zhang
and said,
Jiasun's matter was
"Dad,
settled.
I want to
During
divorce
this
Zhang
period,
Jiasun.
Zhang
But we
Jiasun's
can't let him
father's
off
back
so
was
easily.
hunched. He must
the
have
head of the
something
family,
to do with what
he was
happened
under
to
a lot of
Auntie Ping,
pressure and the design
especially
draft.
when his son,
Miao
whom he
Ying's
was
father
proud of,
looked at the
was
evidence,
involved in such a thing.
especially when he saw
When
the
the Zhang
USB
family
flash
returned
drive.
to the village,
His face
they
turned
were
purple,
disgraced. Ning
and
Shu
had to
quickly
face
tried
the
to
gossip
calm
of
Miao
the
Ying's
villagers.
father down.
What a sin!
Dad, don't be angry.
The day before the court
At least
session,
we found out now.
Ning Shu went to the
Ungrateful
police station
bastard.
to see Zhang
Mr.
Jiasen.
Miao said fiercely.
When he saw Zhang
Miao
Jiasen
Yi's
again,
father said
Ning
fiercely
Shu almost
with a fierce
couldn't
look on his
recognize him.
face.
Zhang
Miao
Jiasen
Yi's father
was wearing
had
a
climbed up
prison
step
uniform.
by step.
His beard
So he
had grown
understood
out,
what Zhang
and he had
Jiasen
lost
was
a lot of
thinking.
weight.
Ning
His
Shu had a
eyes were
plan in
bloodshot.
mind.
His
If he
hair,
directly
which
asked
used to
for a
be neatly
divorce,
combed,
Zhang
was now
Jiasen
messy
might
and
ask
hung
for
in
a
front
share
of
of
his
the
forehead,
property,
almost
Ning Shu
covering
wanted
his
Zhang
eyes.
Jiasen to
Zhang
have
Jiasen
nothing
now looked
and never
very
be able
gloomy
to
and
turn
anxious,
over a new leaf.
like a trapped beast.
Zhang Jiasen
Zhang
didn't have any
Jiasen
of
was
these.
very agitated
What
when
Zhang
he saw
Jiasen
Miao
had
Miao,
worked so hard
which
to
made
have
his
would be
eyes
far
even
away
redder.
from him.
Miao
Divorce,
Miao,
we
why
must
are you
divorce.
only here now?
Mrs. Miao
After you were
slammed the
arrested,
table.
the company
We
was
can't
in chaos.
just let it go.
I went
Mom,
to
I
take
know.
charge.
Don't worry.
Ning Shu asked
Ning
Zhang
Shu said
Jiasen.
lightly.
How have
Ning
you been?
Shu went to the police
Zhang
station
Jiasen
to
rubbed
see
his
Auntie
forehead.
Ping.
He
If
wanted
could
to
get
reach
Auntie
out and
Ping's
grab Ning
statement
Shu's
against
hand,
Zhang Jiasen,
but it was
then
separated
Zhang
by
Jiasen
bulletproof
would not
glass.
only be guilty of
Zhang
corruption,
Jiasen looked at Ning
but
Shu
also
gently,
instigating others to
Miao
commit
Miao,
a crime.
I can explain
Ning
this
Shu
matter
dared
to
to
you.
bet on Miao
As for the
Miao's
house
head
in
that
Thompson
Zhang
residence,
Jiasen
I bought
had
it.
something to do with
I want
this
to give you a
matter.
home.
When he
I
arrived
built
at the
this home
police
for you.
station,
Ning Shu
was
met Zhang
speechless.
Jiasen.
Miao Miao,
What was
please
Zhang
believe
Jiasen
me.
doing at the
Zhang
police
Jiasen
station?
tried hard to
Ning Shu
suppress
saw
the wild
Zhang
beast
Jiasen
in
walk
his
over
heart.
and asked,
Miao Miao
"Why
was
are
now
you
his
here?"
life-saving straw.
Zhang Jiasen
Ning
looked at
Shu
Ning
looked
Shu
at Zhang
gently and
Jiasen
said, with an
I'm here
aggrieved
to see
expression,
brother-in-law.
but Secretary Shui
Zhang
lives in
Jiasen
Thompson
didn't know what
residence.
to say.
Did you really
He
buy
just
this
sighed
house
and
for
rubbed
me?
his forehead.
There's only your
He
name
said
on
to
it.
Ning Shu.
Zhang
This
Jiasen
time,
furrowed his
we
brows
must teach
tightly.
brother-in-law
His
a
eyes were
lesson.
bloodshot
Next
as he
time,
stared
he will make a
fixedly
bigger
at Ning
mess.
Shu. Ning
Was
Shu
this
didn't
your dad's
comment.
idea?
Wasn't
Your
this
father
a big
has
mess?
been checking the
Wasn't
accounts
stealing
recently.
design drafts a big
Zhang
deal?
Jiasen had been
Tan
thinking
He was
about
already
it
a bad
repeatedly for the
person.
past month.
Zhang Jiasen
and
asked
felt
Ning
that
Shu,
Miao Miao's father,
"What are you doing
Miao
here?"
Ji,
was
Ning
the
Shu
one who
said
sent him
lightly.
in. Moreover,
Auntie Ping poisoned
looking at
father's
the
medicine
attitude of the
and
police,
is now locked up.
it was obvious
Zhang
that they had
Jiasen's
solid
pupils
evidence.
shrunk.
This
He looked
matter was
shocked,
done by Miao Ji,
poisoned, and
she
perhaps
can't be
Miao
that
Miao
serious.
was also aware
Ning
of it.
Shu's eyes swept
However,
across Zhang Jiasen's
was
face.
gambling.
There was
Gambling
only
on
shock
Miao
and
Miao's
confusion on
feelings
his
for
face.
him.
There
However,
wasn't a trace of
it was
panic.
clear that this
We will
feeling
find
couldn't
out
be
why she
gambled.
did this. Ning Shu said lightly. He walked around Zhang Jiasen
Miao
and was about
Zhang
to go
Jiasen
in.
wanted to
Zhang
find a
Jiasen
reason
turned
to defend
around
himself
and followed behind
but he
Ning
didn't know
Shu.
what to say.
Miao Miao,
Miao
let me
Miao,
go
please
with you.
believe me.
No need.
Zhang Jiasen
Only
said
one
weakly.
person can visit.
Ning Shu smiled
Ning Shu
and said,
quickly left.
Don't worry,
Zhang
I will
Jiasen
help
looked
you.
at the woman's
Zhang
back
Jiasen's
with treacherous
face
flashed
eyes.
with joy.
He pursed his
Ning
lips
Shu said,
and pulled the tie
I
around
sold
his
our
neck.
wedding house to
Ning
raise
Shu
money to
walked
save
into the
you.
police station
The joy
and
on
looked at
Zhang
Auntie
Jiasen's
Ping,
face
who
instantly
was dressed in
froze.
prison
He
clothes,
furrowed
drew
his
the
brows
bars.
and said,
It
Miao
hadn't been
Miao,
long.
how could you
but
sell the
Auntie
house?
Ping looked much older.
That's our wedding house. Zhang Jiasen's lips trembled twice.
She was no longer
His
the
face
capable
was ashen
servant
as
of
he
the Miao
stared at Ning
family.
Shu.
She looked
He bitterly
desperate.
smiled and asked.
Ning Shu picked up
Miao
the
Miao
phone.
Miao, did you do
Auntie
it on
Ping
purpose?
hesitated for a moment.
What do you mean on purpose?
She sat opposite the thick
Father-in-law
glass
also
and
agreed
picked
to
up the
buy the
phone.
house.
Ning
Mississippi,
Shu said
tell
with
me,
some
who
astonishment.
made you do this?
Zhang Jiasen's
Ning
spirit
Shu
had been
asked
sucked
directly.
away.
There
Right
must
now,
be a price
he really
worth
had nothing
taking
left.
for someone to do
The
such
things
a
that
thing.
he had worked so
This
hard
was
for
murder.
were all gone.
Auntie Ping
The
held the
things that
phone
gave him a
and
foothold
shook her
in the
head
city
without
were all
speaking.
gone.
Zhang
You have to think
Jiasen's mind
carefully.
was in a trance.
What you did is murder.
Not long ago,
You poisoned my
he was
father's
still the
food.
general manager.
That is intentional
who could
murder.
call the wind and summon
Ning
the
Shu
rain.
looked at Auntie Ping
However,
sharply.
right now he had
Did
nothing.
the Miao family
His
not
heart
treat
felt
Auntie
like
Ping
it was
well?
being fried
Did
in
they
a pan
mistreat
of oil.
Auntie Ping?
It was
No,
incomparably
but
painful.
Auntie Ping could do
Zhang
such a
Jiasen
thing.
looked at the woman
People
in
were
front
so
of him
greedy
and
and
asked,
insatiable.
"How much did
Auntie
you sell
Ping's
the house
face
for?"
turned paler.
Ning
She
Shu
looked very
felt that it was
dispirited.
funny that
She
Zhang
said,
Jiasen
I didn't
was
want
still
to kill
concerned
anyone,
about this at this
but
time.
you wanted to kill
Ning
my
Shu
father stretched out a finger.
Ning Shu said coldly.
Zhang Jiasun stared at Ning Shu's finger.
Your
His
son
face
is about to
turned ugly.
graduate.
He suddenly
But he has a
slammed the
mother
table
who is
and
a
said,
murderer.
This house
What
also
future
has
do you
my
think
name.
your son has?
You didn't inform
Your son
me
will
and
hate
sold
you
the
for
house
the rest of his
Meow
life.
meow meow. You
Auntie
did it on
Ping's
purpose.
face was pale.
You did it
and
on
her
purpose.
body was trembling.
The house
Her
in
son
such
was
a good
obviously
location
Auntie Ping's
should have been
weakness.
sold for
She
$3
begged
million.
Ning Shu.
However,
This
it was
has
sold
nothing
at a
to do with
cabbage
my
price.
son.
It
Please
was
don't
sold
hurt
at
him.
1/3 of the price. Ning Shu shrugged her shoulders and said, I really wanted to save you. Save me? Chapter 454.
Zhang Jiasun sneered.
Mrs.
The Miao
Ping cared a
family
lot
was
about
not
her
so
son.
poor that they had to
When
sell
she
the
heard
house.
Ning Shu talk
It
about
must
her
be
son,
that old man
she
Miao
kept
Ji,
begging Ning
who
Shu,
took the opportunity
saying that
to
this had
take away
nothing
the
to do with
property
her
in his
son,
hands.
and that he
Zhang
shouldn't hurt
Jiasun
him.
was so
Ning
angry
Shu
that his
looked
body
coldly
shook.
at Aunt Ping.
He sat
who was
down,
acting like a
and the
loving
blood in
mother.
his eyes became
She only
more
felt that it
serious.
was funny.
Looking at
What
Meow
right
Meow
did she
Meow's
have to
indifferent
beg
face,
others?
his
You told
heart
me
became
not to
more
hurt
and
your
more
son.
terrified.
But you didn't
quickly
think that
said,
your actions would
"Meow,
hurt
meow,
my father.
I really love you.
If something
When we
really
get out,
happened to my father,
I will explain
you
everything
told me
to
not
you."
to hurt your family.
Explain.
But you're hurting
There was no
mine.
need for that.
Ningxu
Ningxu
couldn't
did
stand
not say
Mrs.
anything
Ping acting like
and
this.
just looked at Zhang
She acted
Jiasun.
as if everyone
Zhang
else was the
Jiasun's
bad
emotions
guy,
became
and
even
she was
more
the one
agitated.
hurting others.
If it wasn't for the
Ningxu said
bulletproof
coldly,
glass
"I
separating
remember
them,
that your son
Zhang
is about to
Jiasun would have
graduate.
pounced on them.
I'll make sure
Zhang
he can't
Jiasun
stay in
looked
this
a little
city
crazy,
unless you
he
tell me
slammed
who
the glass
told you
with
to
his
do
hand
this."
and opened and closed
Mrs.
his
Ping's
mouth.
tears made her
Ningxu
face
hung
look
up
even
the folder
older and more
and
desperate.
could not hear what he said.
However,
Because
Ningxu
Zhang
didn't feel
Jiasun's
any
emotions
sympathy
were
for
too
her.
agitated.
The plot didn't
He was
mention
suppressed
Mrs.
by the
Ping.
people in the
This
detention
person who had
center.
worked for the Miao
Zhang
family
Jiasun
for so many
violently
years
resisted,
was
he kept
obviously
looking
an
at
insignificant
Ningxu
person
and roared
in the
at
plot.
Ningxu. However, he didn't expect that Mr. Miao would die in her
However,
hands.
through the glass,
The original
it was
owner didn't know
impossible to
anything
hear what he was
so
saying.
Ningxu's attention
Ningxu
was on
felt
Zhang Jiasun
as if he was
when she
watching a
entered the
pantomime
plot.
show.
If he hadn't
Zhang
seen
Jiasun
Zhang
was
Jiasun
finally dragged
and
away.
Mrs. Ping talking
His eyes
that
were
night,
filled with
and
blood.
Mrs. Ping being caught
Especially when he
red-handed,
saw the indifferent
Ningxu's
Ningxu.
doubts would have been
His
answered.
expression was filled
Zhang
with
Jiasun
despair
had a
and
spy in the
resentment.
Miao family.
He looked at
Ningxu
Ningxu
knew
with
that
eyes full
Mrs.
of
Ping was
resentment.
working for Zhang
Facing
Jiasun,
such a gaze,
so he needed
Ningxu
Mrs.
felt
Ping's
very
confession.
happy. Knowing
Mrs.
that
Ping
you were
closed her
suffering
mouth and
I am
didn't
relieved.
speak.
She just
Ningxu
said,
went to see Shui
"I'm
Man
sorry,
Man
Master
again.
and Madam.
However,
I'm really
he did not
sorry.
meet Shui Man Man.
What was the use of
Instead,
staying sorry
he found
when she
out from
harmed
the
others
police
for
who
her own
interrogated
selfish
Shui Man
desires?"
Man.
Shui
Ningxu
Man Man
narrowed
had
his
all
eyes
kinds
at
of
Mrs.
branded
Ping.
goods.
Bags,
He didn't know what
cosmetics,
tempting conditions
clothes,
could
shoes,
make
perfume,
Mrs. Ping refuse
beauty
to
cards,
speak.
and all
I
kinds
didn't
of
want
other
to kill
things.
old Master,
It was
really.
estimated
Aunt
to be
Ping
more than a
repeated the
million
same
yuan.
words over and
These
over
were
again.
all blood-sucked from
Ningxu
the Miao
just sneered.
family.
Counting
Zhang
all the
Jiasun,
miscellaneous
who was waiting
things,
at the entrance
Zhang
of the police
Jiasun had
station,
earned more than 10
saw that
million yuan
Ningxu
in the
hadn't
past
come out
2
for a
years.
long time.
He was really
Moreover,
thinking of ways
it was
to
already
empty
dark.
out the Miao family.
Zhang Jiasun
Not only
stared
would
at the
Zhang
door
Jiasun
with a
go to
particularly
jail,
treacherous
Shui
and
Man
cold
Man would
gaze.
also face criminal
His clenched
detention.
fists loosened and
Moreover,
tightened.
her
Tightened
things would
and
no
loosened,
longer be hers,
and his entire
they would
body
become
was filled
stolen
with
goods.
irritation.
Like I said,
When Ningxu left
everything
the
that
police
you have
station,
eaten must be
he
spat
saw
out.
that Zhang Jiasun
One by
was
one,
still waiting at
they
the
dug
door.
out the flesh
He
and
didn't say
drank the
anything.
blood of the Miao
Meow
family.
Meow, what's going on?
They even laughed
Why
at
did
Meow
Aunt
Meow
Ping
Meow's
poison Dad?
stupidity behind
Did
her
she
back.
tell you?
Miao
Zhang
family is
Jiasun
rich,
hurriedly walked
so they should
towards
be treated
Ningxu
like
and
this.
asked,
Do they still
Ningxu
think
looked
that
at
they are
Zhang
robbing the
Jiasun
rich
with an
to give
angry
to the poor?
expression and said,
Are they enforcing
she
justice
really doesn't
on
want to
behalf
say
of the
anything.
heavens?
Ningxu
Ningxu
would
would
not
not
let
let
Zhang
expression
Jiasun
relax
off
when he heard
nor
that
would he let
Mrs.
Shui
Ping
Man
didn't
Man
say
off.
anything.
Zhang
He
Jiasun's
comforted
actions were
Ningxu.
vile. The
But
truth
Shui
will
Man
come out
Man's
eventually.
actions were equally
Don't be
disgusting.
so anxious.
Perhaps
Fortunately,
after Meow Meow's
father-in-law
death,
is fine. Shui Man Man and Zhang Jiasun openly got together.
Ningxu
Just like
looked
what
at Zhang Jiasun
and
said,
scolded
they had
angrily.
a cute child.
She really
They
doesn't know
snuggled
what's
together
going
in the
on.
garden
Jiasun,
and
why
watched
do
the
you
child
think?
play.
Dad and
It was
Mom
a happy
didn't hurt
family.
her and gave her a salary. We don't expect her to be grateful, but she can't be so heartless. This kind of person should go to hell after she dies. The next
Zhang
day was the
Jiasun's
court
expression
session didn't change at all.
Ningxu
When he
arrived
heard
at the
such
entrance of
curses.
the court early
He
in the
softened
morning.
his voice and comforted
After all,
Ningxu.
he was the
All
general
right,
manager
don't
of
be
a
angry.
company.
It's not
The
good to hurt
embezzlement
your
of
body.
tens of millions
The truth will come out
attracted some
eventually.
reporters from small
Ningxu
newspapers.
looked at Zhang Jiasun.
This was Ningxu's
expression didn't change.
The corruption of a manager was
obviously
different
scolding
from the
him
corruption of
indirectly.
a general
But
manager.
Zhang Jiasun was
If
so
half of the
magnanimous.
person in charge of
This
a company
man was
embezzled the
determined
company's
and would
money,
do anything to
the
achieve his
impact
goal.
would be greater.
Meow Meow Meow's
Also,
death wasn't
she wanted to
unjust.
put the complacent
Meow
Zhang
Meow,
Jiasun
you
behind
haven't gone
bars
back for a long
and
time.
expose his evil
Go back
deeds
today.
in front of everyone.
Zhang Jiasun said to
Today's
Ningxu.
drama would definitely
Ningxu's
be exciting.
expression became
Not
serious.
only did Ningxu come,
Why would I go back?
but the Zhang family
Your mom
also
will scold
came.
me again.
Even Zhang
and your
Xiaomei's
sister
twin
will
brother,
kneel down in front
who
of
was
me
addicted
again.
to the internet.
You're making me
came.
look like a bad
The Zhang
person.
family looked at Ningxu
Zhang
with
Jiasun's
disdain.
expression was
Ningxu
very
didn't
helpless.
care at all.
He reached
He
out
found
his
a
hand
seat in
in
the
the gallery and
Ningxu's
sat
head.
down.
He
The
sighed
Zhang
as if he
family
had made
sat
a
a
little
little
far from
compromise.
Ningxu.
He said
Obviously,
to Ningxu,
they didn't want to
Meow
sit
Meow,
with Ningxu.
I've already discussed
Soon,
with my parents
Zhang
and
Jiasun
asked
was
them to go back
handcuffed
to live in
and
the
was
countryside.
taken to the dock by the
But the
armed
house in the
police.
countryside is
He was
too
wearing
shabby
a
and
prisoner's
old.
vest.
I think I've
seeing
some
Zhang
money in
Jiasun
the
come
past
out.
2 years
The Zhang family
to build
was
a
very
clean and
excited.
comfortable house
Zhang
for them.
Jiasun's mother
Miao
saw
Miao,
her
what do
son
you
being
think?
treated like this.
Ningxu instantly
cheeks were
felt that
tightly
Zhang
clenched,
Jiasun was
and her
going to
face was
transfer
trembling.
his assets.
Zhang Jiasun's
a
father
house.
had a serious
Was he
face.
planning to build a
He
big
touched
villa
his
in the
waist and
countryside?
found that he didn't bring his
Ningxu's
pipe.
expression didn't
Zhang
change.
Jiasun's condition
She
wasn't
blinked and
very
asked.
good.
He
Did
kept
Dad and
his
Mom
head down,
agree?
and the
Zhang
front of his
Jiasun
hair
sighed
covered
and
his
said,
eyes.
Actually,
In particular,
they're not used
the
to living
camera
in the
flashes
city.
made Zhang
It's just
Jiasun
that
lower his head
brother-in-law
even
is
more.
still in the detention
Ningxu
center.
looked at the current
When
Zhang
brother-in-law
Jiasun
is
with a
released,
gloomy
they'll
and
go
cold
back.
aura.
The
Ningxu's
prosecutor's
eyelids
office
trembled.
would file a
She
complaint
finally
against
understood
Zhang
that Zhang Jiasun could
Then,
achieve several
the jury
goals
and the
by
judge
doing
would
one
decide
thing.
on Zhang
Sending
Jiasun's
his
crime.
parents back would
Zhang
appease Miao
Jiasun's
Miao.
crime was set in
Secondly,
stone.
he could
However,
build a house for
the
his
process
parents.
still had to be
With
done,
Miao Miao's
and various
stupidity,
kinds of evidence
she
were
might even
presented.
fork out money
From
to
the
help
beginning
build the
to
house.
the end.
Thirdly,
Zhang Jiasun
he could
didn't
get his
say a
brother-in-law
word.
out.
He seemed to be
Getting
out of
Tan
it.
Hu out would
Maybe he
definitely
didn't care
cost
about
money.
his future.
Who would fork
His
out the
whole
money?
body was calm.
Zhang Jiasun's
had a
parents
frightening
must have put a
gloomy
lot
aura.
of pressure on him.
Ning-Shu couldn't
to get
understand
Tan
what
Hu
Zhang
out.
Jiasun was
This
thinking.
person was really
Although it was
scheming
a
against her
process,
all the time.
it still needed
Zhang
witnesses
Jiasun
and material
Meow
evidence.
meow. What do you
When
think?
he heard about the witness,
Ning-Shu smiled
Zhang
and said,
Jiasun's body
as
moved.
long as you're happy.
Witness, who is
It
this
seems
witness?
like brother-in-law is
Ning-Shu
going
was
to be
also
detained for
curious.
half a year.
The armed police
not a
brought
long
Shui
time.
Man Man up.
It's only
When
half
he saw
a year.
Shui Man Man,
It's not a big
Ning-Shu
deal to
suddenly
let them
laughed.
stay here for
Was
half a
Shui
year.
Man Man going to be a
After all,
witness? Once
are
they
you
go
going
back
to
to the
testify
countryside,
against Zhang Jiasun?
they won't be able to
Oh,
see each
this
other
is the
for
love
a year.
between Zhang
Ning-Shu
Jiasun
was
and Shui
very
Man Man.
understanding.
Zhang Jiasun
don't
turned his
worry.
head and
Let
saw
them
Shui
stay
Man
here
Man.
for a while.
He was stunned.
Obviously,
He was
Ning-Shu
shocked
raised
by
his
Shui
wrist
Man
and
Man's
looked at his
arrival.
watch.
Zhang
He then
Jiasun's
said to
face
Zhang
trembled as he
Jiasun,
stared at
who
Shui
was a
Man
little
Man.
confused.
Shui Man Man
I have
looked
to go
flustered.
back.
When
Dad's
she met
health is
Zhang
not
Jiasun's
good.
gloomy eyes,
He has to go to the
she
hospital
immediately
for a
looked
checkup.
away. Her
Help
body
me take
trembling
care of the
slightly.
company.
I won't be going back home. Ning-Shu then opened the
Shui
door
Man
and
Man
got
knew
in the
that
car.
she had let Zhang
He didn't
Jiasun
wait
down
for
by
Zhang
doing
Jiasun
this.
to say anything
But she
and
could
drove
only do
away.
this to reduce
Looking
her
at the car
punishment.
leaving dust
She was a
behind,
girl, she couldn't
Zhang
go to
Jiasun
jail.
angrily
She would
swung
be
his
30
arm
years
and
old
kicked
when
the
she
flower
came out
bed.
of jail.
His face
Who
was
would want
very
a woman
ugly.
who had been in
Why
jail?
was Meow Meow like
What
this
should
now?
she do for the
He
rest
felt
of
that
her life?
something was wrong.
She was struggling
Zhang
in her
Jiasun
heart.
stared at the
She
police
didn't want to
station.
betray Zhang
Did Aunt Ping
Jiasun,
say something?
but at this point,
If she did,
she and
Meow
Zhang
Meow
Jiasun
shouldn't
had
have
no
reacted
future.
like this.
It was
Meow Meow
impossible
was
for
simple
her and
and
Zhang
couldn't
Jiasun
pretend
to be
anything.
together.
If she
Zhang
really knew
Jiasun
something,
still had
she would
Meow
make
Meow
a
Meow to
scene.
help him.
Zhang
But what
Jiasun
about
felt
her?
very annoyed.
Her parents
He wanted to
despised
find
her and
Shui
didn't
Man
come
Man.
to see her until
But now was a sensitive
She had
time.
nowhere to go.
Zhang Jiasun's
Shui
heart
Man
was
Man
tight.
had already made up
He
her
couldn't
mind.
make a mistake at
But
this
when she
time.
faced Zhang
Zhang Jiasun walked
she
into
still
the
felt
police
terrified
station.
and ashamed.
He wanted to visit Aunt
especially
Ping,
when she saw
but
Zhang
was told
Jiasun
that
in
the
such a
visiting
sorry
time
state.
today had passed.
While feeling
A
ashamed,
series of
Shui
setbacks
Man
made
Man
Zhang
also
Jiasun
confirmed
very
her inner
angry.
thoughts.
But the
Shui Man
expression
Man
on his
took a
face
deep
was
breath and
indifferent
said,
and calm.
"Judge,
His eyes were
I
very
can testify
deep,
that
and there
Zhang
was a
Jiasun
cold
took
aura around
advantage
him.
of his position in the company
and embezzled a lot of the company's money. He sold the goods
Chapter
at a low price
455
and quoted a high
The
price.
depressed Zhang Jiasun
Some of the
found a bar to
suppliers
drink.
even bribed Zhang
When he
Jiasun.
returned home drunk,
There are even
he saw that
accounts
the
in
house
the
was
safe
pitch
of Thompson
black and the
residential
lights were not
residence.
turned on.
Then
He
how do
didn't
you
know
know
what he bumped into.
The judge asked. But the
Shui
volcano
Man
in
Man
Zhang
bit her
Jiasun's
lips
heart
and took a
erupted.
deep breath
What's
before
going
saying,
on? Why
"I'm
didn't you
Zhang
turn on the
Jiasun's
lights?
mistress.
He
Zhang
has a lot
Jiasun
of
said
things to tell
coldly,
me. Where did you run off to?
Kacha.
There's no
The
electricity
reporters
or
pressed
water
their
in the
shutters
house.
fiercely.
I couldn't
This
find
kind
you
of
for a
nude
whole
news
day.
was much more
Are you
attractive
trying to starve
than
us
a
to
simple
death?
corruption case.
Zhang
The
Jiasun's
drama
mother's
of being
voice rang
accused
out
by
in the
his
dark.
mistress
If
and
Xiaomei
becoming
didn't know how to
enemies
make
was
takeout,
really explosive.
your father and I would have starved to
Shui
death.
Man Man said
Hearing
everything
his
in one
mother's
go,
words,
which
Zhang
made
Jiasun
Jiasun
felt
powerless.
burn with anger.
He took his
Zhang
phone to the
Jiasun rushed
kitchen
to
and
Shui
lit a
Man Man
candle.
at lightning speed.
Then he saw his family
He reached out
sitting
his
on the
hand
sofa.
and grabbed Shui Man Man's
"Jiasun,
neck.
I see that
He
everyone
shouted
else has
fiercely,
electricity.
Shui Man Man,
Why is it that
you
only
dare
our
to
house
betray
doesn't
me, you
have
bitch."
electricity?
Shui Man Man's
Zhang
face
Jiasun's
turned
mother
purple
was
from
very
Zhang
angry.
Jiasun's grip.
Why can't we
She
have
struggled and
electricity?
tried to pry
Brother,
Zhang Jiasun's
when will
hand
there
away.
be electricity?
The armed police
I was
at the
playing
side
games
quickly
when the
pulled
electricity
Zhang Jiasun
stopped.
away.
But
But
Zhang
Xiaomei's
Jiasun
twin brother
refused to
asked
let go of
Shui
Jiasun.
Man Man's neck.
"Brother,
About
Shui
your
Man Man's
brother-in-law."
eyes had already rolled
Zhang
back.
Wenlan looked at
Zhang
Zhang Jiasun
bent
with a
his
sad
fingers
expression
and almost
Zhang
sank them
Jiasun
into
had
Shui
drunk a
Man
lot of
Man's
wine.
neck.
Now
Seeing
that
that
he heard
something
all
was
the
wrong,
chatter in his
the
ears,
armed police
an
took out a stun
inexplicable
baton
feeling was
and
stuck
hit
in his
Zhang
heart.
Jiasun's body.
Zhang Jiasun picked up his
whole
phone
body
and called
trembled from
Ning-Shu.
the electric
The
shock.
first thing he said
His
was,
hand weakly let
"Meow
go
Meow,
of
why
Shui
didn't
Man
you pay
Man's
the
neck.
electricity bill?"
Shui Man Man fell to the
Ning-Shu,
ground,
who received the
gasping
call,
for
was
breath
speechless
and coughing violently.
She didn't live in the house.
Zhang Jiasun looked
Why
at
did she
Shui
have
Man
to
Man
pay
with
the
eyes full of
electricity bill?
resentment and
What a
hatred.
slut. When he was
How could
dragged
Zhang
away by
Jiasun
the
have
armed
the nerve
police,
to say that?
he even kicked
Ning-Shu
Shui Man Man.
smiled.
She
Shui
even
Man Man felt that it was a waste to be angry and coughed until tears.
I'm busy with the company's affairs,
all over her face,
and I don't live at home.
Silence.
How can I remember
the
such
judge
a trivial
matter
like the
and
water
asked the
and
armed
electricity
police
bill
to take the battered
It's getting late.
man away?
I'm hanging up.
Ningshu looked
I'm
at
going
the
to
scene.
sleep.
Because of
pay the
interest,
electricity bill.
They would also fall
Ningshu
apart
yawned
because
and hung
of
up.
interests. As Zhang Jiasun listened to the busy tone on the phone, he felt as if there
Zhang
was
Jiasun
magma
and
surging in his heart,
each had their own
as if
selfish
it was about to
motives.
gush out of his
When
chest.
a disaster came,
Zhang Jiasun
husband
was
and
so
wife would
angry
fly
that his
away
chest
separately,
was heaving up and down.
not to mention Zhang
under the
Jiasun
influence of alcohol.
and Shueman's
His mind was in a
relationship
daze,
with no guarantee.
Picking up his phone,
Oh my, it's too
he
comfortable,
smashed it
too
on the
cool.
ground and
He
practically
liked to watch
gnashed
such a
his teeth
show.
as he yelled.
The two people
Meow,
who were
meow,
hugging
meow.
each other
While calling
and
out
were
for meow,
incomparably
meow, meow.
affectionate,
Zhang
immediately
Jiasun's
turned
face
hostile
revealed a
and
sinister
ruthless.
and treacherous
They weren't
expression.
so faithful.
Under the
Ningshu
illumination
wasn't
of the
surprised
candlelight,
by
it
Shueman's
looked
decision at
extremely
all.
terrifying.
Shueman
Everyone
and
in the
Zhang
room was
Jiasun
shocked
were both
by
very
Zhang
selfish
Jiasun.
people.
Zhang
No matter
Jiasun's
what
father
happened,
quickly stood
the
up and
first
asked
thing they
Zhang
would think
Jiasun,
of was themselves.
"What's wrong?
This was
Why
normal.
did you smash the
People
phone?
were selfish.
Don't phones cost
but these
money?"
two people were
Zhang
extremely
Jiasun's
selfish.
mother muttered. She looked at the broken phone on the ground with heartache. His expression was even more defeated. Get in the house and sleep. In addition, he was mumbling about stun baton just now. Zhang Jiasen's father yelled at Zhang Jiasen and powerless. That damn bitch. That rotten-ass bitch. Zhang Jiasen's mother looked dissatisfied like this. But she didn't dare to refute Zhang Jiasen's father, who was sitting in the gallery, the head of the family, kept cursing Shui Man. She turned around and went into the room. She felt very sorry for Zhang Jiasen. Only the father and son were left in the living room. If it wasn't for Zhang Jiasen's father holding her back, father asked she would have run to the dock. What happened? The Zhang family's expressions were very bad. Zhang Jiasen calmed down and said, Zhang Jiasen's father looked at Ning Shu. I can solve it. Obviously. He wanted Ning Shu to save Zhang Jiasen. His eyebrows were filled with situation was very bad now. This son of his was the pride of the Zhang family. Zhang Jiasen's father had his own ideas since he was young. His expression was ashen. He could solve everything by himself. Zhang Jiasen in his heart for not being able to control his crotch. When Zhang Jiasen was young, otherwise this wouldn't have happened. He could make those who bullied him suffer in silence. Zhang Jiasen's father worked so hard to cultivate Zhang Jiasen. Chapter 466. Now Zhang Jiasen had become the most powerful person in the village because of Zhang Jiasen's existence. But this mistress Jiasen's father was now very respected in the village, which made the Zhang family feel very uncomfortable. Many people came to ask him for help. Since she was Zhang Jiasen's father was a person who couldn't done such a thing. So he tried his best to lay eggs mother so that his next generation could fly. Was really disgraceful. He had the cunning and scheming of a villager. No one had considered Zhang Jiasen's father didn't say anything else. Her husband cheated on her. He went into the house. No one cared about her feelings. Zhang Jiasen went to the balcony and lit a cigarette. In the Zhang family, standing on the daughter-in-law was the lowest and most undignified creature. This city was gorgeous. Above her was her sister-in-law. Every inch of land, her brother-in-law, was a thick stack of money. And then her husband, after graduating from university, above her were her parents-in-law who had absolute authority. He couldn't buy a house in the city for the rest of his life. People could be divided into different ranks. He couldn't settle down in the city. Meow was the lowest. He was a university student in the village. The trial who talked about him gave him a thumbs up. Was sentenced to 10 years in prison forced him to work hard to survive here. And the amount of bribes was more than 100,000 yuan. It was worth it. And more than 10 million yuan. So he had to protect all the stolen money was confiscated. He had to cut through all obstacles and move forward. Man was guilty of concealing money and status to build his success to dispose of the and erase his poor past. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison. And 2 years was indifferent because the next morning the initiative to provide evidence. First went to the university to look for Aunt Ping's son. Zhang Jiasen's mother immediately stood up and roared. To know that something had happened to his mother. My son only took money from his wife's family. When he came down from the dormitory building, how is this corruption? His eyes were still hazy. In the Zhang family's view, Ning Shu looked at Zhang Jiasen used their family's money. He was an ordinary university and the Miao family's money was Zhang Jiasen's. Ning Shu brought Aunt Ping's son to the police station. People outside the court are not allowed to didn't know why this beautiful woman brought him to the police station. You can't stay in the gallery. He didn't do anything illegal. The judge said expressionlessly as he entered the police station. Zhang Jiasen's mother's face was dark red. So early, especially when many reporters were taking photos of her. Zhang Jiasen's mother was at a loss, just come out, and stood there blankly. Was also stunned Zhang Jiasen's father pulled her to sit down with the young boy next to Ning Shu. Zhang Jiasen's mother sat on the chair, and her face was twisted in pain. Obviously, but she didn't dare to say anything. To see his wife with another man. Zhang Jiasen turned to look at his family. When he turned back, he saw Ning Shu sitting in the corner and was stunned. Ning Shu and Zhang Jiasen's eyes met. Ning Shu gently and Zhang Jiasen immediately looked away in embarrassment. I just want to ask her why she did this. Zhang Jiasen felt embarrassed because of the matter between him and Shui was speechless. Zhang Jiasen turned his head. Zhang Jiasen looked down at Aunt Ping that his body was trembling slightly. His temperament was very strong, and his figure was slightly bent. Aunt Ping's son was like a chicken facing a tiger in front of Zhang Jiasen. Why couldn't he face it? Aunt Ping's son's expression changed. Even Zhang Jiasen felt embarrassed, especially when he heard this man mention Aunt Ping. Ning Shu felt uneasy. Corruption and bribery were felonies. This man's strong temperament made his heart pound to settle it privately. Zhang Jiasen would naturally be fine. This is Aunt Ping's son. However, I brought him to see his mother. Zhang Jiasen would have to bear the consequences. And this was just corruption and bribery. Why did you bring him here? What if there was anything wrong with the mother wanting to commit a crime? Ning Shu said to Zhang Jiasen. He brushed past him and entered the police station. He wanted to expose Zhang Jiasen's face was pale under the sun. He couldn't believe that his mother was in the police station. Zhang Jiasen's expression kept changing. His father-in-law. In the end, he followed Ning Shu in, taking bribes. Didn't you see her just now? Ning Shu asked Zhang was still successful in the end. Zhang Jiasen smiled and was even respected by others. Since we've already met, after the verdict was over, we'll go back together later. Zhang Jiasen was taken away. Let's have lunch together. Zhang Jiasen's legs were a little weak together for a long time. So he was helped down by two armed police officers. Just the two of us. Zhang Jiasen's gaze was fixed on Ning Shu's body. This kind of mask to hide his aura was restrained. And he played along, very calm. And Meow Meow didn't look like someone who was going to face 10 years in prison. Ning Shu was surprised by Zhang Jiasen's calmness. Zhang Jiasen was not an ordinary person. After the trial ended, a new verdict was immediately issued. Zhang Jiasun was brought up again. Everyone was stunned. The reporters who were about to leave immediately came back. Zhang Jiasun's face was a little pale, but he was still calm. However, the Zhang family was at a loss. 10 years in prison had already made the Zhang family despair. But what was going on? This time, the prosecutor's office was accusing Zhang Jiasun of instigating others to commit a crime. The surrounding people were in an uproar. The reporters pressed the shutter. They thought it was an insignificant piece of news, but Zhang Jiasun had done so many things. It was a big piece of news with all kinds of information. When Zhang Jiasun heard the accusation, his pupils shrank. He quickly turned to look at Ningxiu. Ningxiu and Zhang Jiasun's eyes met. Zhang Jiasun narrowed his eyes slightly. A flash of understanding flashed across his face. Then, he turned around and stopped looking at Ningxiu. Zhang Jiasun's mother sobbed softly. She didn't dare to make a sound. Zhang Jiasun's father's face was ashen. He looked a lot older. Aunt Ping, who was wearing a prison uniform, was brought in by the armed police. Aunt Ping was very thin. The prison uniform was empty on her body. Her hair was white. She was only 50 years old, but she looked like she was about to die. Aunt Ping said disheartenedly, Zhang Jiasun asked me to drug Miao Ji's medicinal food. This kind of drug won't be discovered even if it's eaten. If it succeeds, Zhang Jiasun promised to let my son follow him. He will nurture my son. I thought that the Miao family would definitely belong to Zhang Jiasun in the future. I wanted to take a gamble. I'm just a nanny. For my son's future, I can only take the risk. Aunt Ping saw Zhang Jiasun's success, so she wanted to let her son take a shortcut. Zhang Jiasun was originally just a person in the mountains, but because of the Miao family, he walked to the peak of life. Even a nanny like Aunt Ping felt that the Miao family would belong to Zhang Jiasun in the future, let alone the people in the company. Many of the higher-ups were biased towards Zhang Jiasun. Even if the Miao family's company wasn't big, where there were people, there would be underworld. Miao Miao was a useless girl. Everyone thought that Father Miao found a son-in-law like Zhang Jiasun to inherit the Miao family. Zhang Jiasun smoothly took over the company after Father Miao's death. In the face of Aunt Ping's accusation, Zhang Jiasun didn't refute and calmly accepted it. In this crime committed by Zhang Jiasun and Aunt Ping, Zhang Jiasun was the main culprit and Aunt Ping was an accomplice. Zhang Jiasun would face heavy punishment. Because of the nature of the crime, Zhang Jiasun was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Aunt Ping was sentenced to 4 years in prison. In other words, Zhang Jiasun would be sentenced to 18 years, which was close to 20 years. Zhang Jiasun's body trembled, but he quickly stabilized. He turned to look at Ningxiu. From the beginning to the end, Ningxiu's expression was indifferent. Zhang Jiasun's lips moved. Under the light, Zhang Jiasun's face was a little hazy. After the sentencing, Zhang Jiasun's mother couldn't control herself anymore and burst into tears. Zhang Jiasun didn't care about his mother's cries. Or rather, he couldn't care less. The reporters kept taking photos of Zhang Jiasun. Zhang Jiasun was a monster. After the trial ended, Zhang Jiasun was taken away. He looked at Ningxiu and his lips moved. Ningxiu looked at his mouth and saw that it was Miao Miao. Could it be that Zhang Jiasun still wanted him to save him at this point? Ningxiu thought that he was dreaming. After the trial ended, Ningxiu stood up and prepared to leave. There was still one more thing to settle. Daughter-in-law. Zhang Jiasun's father called out to Ningxiu. He stood up in a hurry and his body swayed. Fortunately, there was someone supporting him. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.